You're listening to Crash FM, and all I can say is I have an awesome job. I crash in the sun, you crash in the traffic. I'm Stryker. Hang out with me for all the action.
Yeah, we said we let it go, but we settled for the last. Couldn't let you want it though. Who am I to let you down? No, who am I to let you down? Down, if you let me walk away, maybe then we'd lose it all. No. Who am I to let you
I'm walking alone, the streets are empty. The only thing I can see is my own silhouette. I'm getting stronger, step by step. The clock is ticking, but there's no time for me. I've been flying from town to town, from London to Taiwan. I've been all around the globe, trying to protect your soul. We are heroes tonight. We will fly above the sky. We are heroes tonight. Yeah. We are heroes tonight. We will fly above the sky. We are heroes tonight. Feel like a dynamite, ready to explode right up in the sky. I need you to listen, I need you to hear, and don't show any fear. I've been flying from town to town, from London to Taiwan. I've been all around the globe, trying to protect your soul. We are heroes tonight. We will fly above the sky. to town, from London to Taiwan. I've been all around the globe trying to protect your soul.
I gotta tell you, it is looking tough out there this weekend. These drivers are fighting tooth and nail. What do you think? They're racing for pink slips? We're having some great matchups, and it's only going to get more competitive as the weekend goes on.
Good evening, race fans, and welcome to the 2021 Podium 500 preview live on Podium Esports. James Pike, the voice of Podium Esports, here alongside Jacob Seelman, Justin Prince, and Blake McCandless. And first and foremost, I must confess that this is what happens when you bet against Richmond Raceway Esports in a race on their own track. I said a few weeks ago on Twitter that I didn't think we'd have any cautions at Richmond, just for a flyer. They took the other side of the equation and won in their own house. I should have known the deck was stacked against me. So this is my punishment. The only thing I'm missing is the Chucky Finster t-shirt, clearly. But Richmond Raceway Esports has got one on me and my dumb self, and this is where I give Brandon Brown and the team at Richmond credit for making sure that they hammer it home. So good job, them. But We do know that there is a Pro Series finale at Homestead-Miami that we need to get you to at the top of the hour, and we will. But before we do, it's time to talk about the third annual Podium 500. On one weekend, any driver can go from nothing to something. Daniel Eberhard winning the Podium Esports Daytona 500. And something to nothing. Oh, contact! Justice gets hurt in front of the field. Derek Justice gets... In an instant. Register now at podiumesports.com. The Podium 500 is back for 2021. One of the largest super speedway events in all of iRacing, one of the largest independent special events in all of iRacing. Over 175 drivers have competed throughout the weekend in the past 2 seasons, and next year's Podium 500 stands to be no different. However, as per the case here in these first few years of this big event, there are a few changes to the format from the previous 2 seasons, and the biggest one comes on Thursday night, February 4th. We add a preliminary race for drivers who hold a Class D safety rating on ovals or lower, or a 1500 iRating on ovals or lower. All of those drivers will go to the preliminary race, which will be broadcast live on twitch.tv/Podium Esports at 9 p.m. Eastern Time, Thursday, February 4th. 100 laps in the night at the World Center of Racing, and the top 8 finishers from that race will move on and be eligible for Podium 500 time trials, which will occupy Friday night as per usual. Now, if you register with either a Class C safety rating or 1500 iRating or above, you're fine. You don't have to worry about Thursday. You'll immediately be eligible for time trials, and those numbers are taken from the moment that you register. So if you're below Class C or 1500, go run some official oval races and get that bumped up so you don't have to worry about Thursday night. But for everybody else, Friday time trials is the same deal as it's been. You drop in for 5 minutes, anywhere from 7 to 11 p.m. Eastern Time on Friday, February 5th in the evening. Join any of the servers that will be open at that time. Set a qualifying time, drop in, drop out, jump in, jump out, and wait and see what happens, because at the end of the evening, Podium Esports will collate all of the times across all of the servers, and the top 2 drivers from time trials will automatically lock themselves into the Podium 500 on Sunday. They get to skip the gauntlet that is qualifying day. Everybody else will be snaked into one of 8 heat races, and that's where we'll begin the program on Saturday, February 6th, qualifying day, one of the busiest days of the year here at Podium Esports, and one of the closest days I think that sim racing ever gets to an NCAA tournament-style field, because it is wall-to-wall action all day long. 8 heats, 2 last chance qualifiers, and 2 dual races to whittle down the presumably over 175 entries to the final 43 that will make the show. From the heats, the top 8 drivers who finish 1 through 8 in each of their heats will automatically qualify to the duels. Anybody finishing 9th to 18th will go to one of the last chance qualifiers. From the 2 last chance qualifiers, we'll take the top 8 finishers from each, and it will finish off 40-car grids for each of the 2 dual races, from which we will take the top 18 drivers from those duels who are not already locked into the show, which will give us 2 drivers who lock themselves in via time trials, 36 that will come from the duels, and then 5 provisionals that will come from events that Podium Esports has held in the last year. The 2 previous Daytona 500, Podium 500 champions, rather, Seth the Merchant and Daniel Eberhard will be guaranteed a spot in the show on Sunday, as will the champions of the 2020 Cars Esport Tour, Matt Cucker and Ryan Matthews, and the first in Flight 400 champion, Michael Frisch, from back in June. Those 5 are automatically locked into the 500 if they so choose, and we will be left with a 43-car field that will take the green flag just after 1 p.m. on Sunday, February 7th. 200 laps, 500 miles, 43 cars, 9 sets of tires will mirror the tire limits that you see in the real-life Great American Race, and $1,000 to the winner, with every driver who makes the feature race guaranteed their money. A lot to process. It's one of the biggest weekends in sim racing, Justin Prince, and now in its third year, it is a tremendous event that everybody marks down on their calendars. It's a huge way to kick off the Speed Week season.
Yes, absolutely. And there's a reason many drivers across the service consider it one of the biggest events, if not the biggest event in all of iRacing, because of the difficulty to make their way into the field, as well as the intensity of said field. There were plenty of chills and spills last year, where it's expected to be a difficult field to get in, especially for the qualifying day and the time trials, to make sure you have a spot in. There's a reason it's considered a staple. And we've seen some plenty big names all battle for positions as a result, James, in the past couple of years.
There were 10 drivers who competed in the 2020 eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series who competed in Sunday's show. In the Podium 500 a year ago, there were a few drivers who competed in the Coke Series who did not make it through qualifying day, which tells you anything. But, Blake, this is plate racing, and there is a bit of an any given Sunday feel to any plate race that you go into. And there are very few spots in the sim and in iRacing where you can take a Coke Series driver and you can take someone who just came into the sim with a 1500 I rating and a rookie safety rating and have a place where they can all come together and compete, and have a place where the little folks sometimes can get one of the big guys. And even though Coke Series drivers have done well in the Podium 500 the past 2 seasons, we've had Coke drivers finish runner-up in the first 2 iterations of the event. It's been drivers outside of the Coke Series that have gone to victory lane. So it's really anyone's shot at the end of the day.
It really is. And of course, if you look out at the field, you're going to see big names, obviously a lot of Coke Series drivers that are a part of the field and are generally going to run up front, but you still can have those little scenarios like you mentioned where some of these smaller drivers, names that we don't know as well, they have that same opportunity to compete, to run up front. Obviously, there is a skill to super speedway racing. There's no doubt about it, but we still have that ability at the World Center of Racing to have that type of event where obviously we wouldn't be surprised if we had a Coke Series driver end up winning the 2021 Podium 500. But of course, that possibility always remains that we could have an unknown that also takes the top spot.
There are so many great stories that come out of Podium 500 weekends, unknowns that survive qualifying day and make it, big names that will try and claim the mantle. The defending Coke Series champion was one of the runner-up finishers last year. Nick Ottinger was there, Jacob Seelman, and it's just a tremendous event for everybody across the board.
It really is, and we're getting ready in just a minute to bring in one of the drivers who competed in this past year's Podium 500. That was really one of the stories. I feel like we followed a lot of the race. You see him on the outside lane there in Briar LaPrade, who we'll talk to momentarily. But no, I like what Blake said. This is where you can be a nobody and make your name, or you can already have your name made on this service and have a chance to go out and really put a gold star next to it. It's anybody's race. I think this year it could be the most wide open we've seen it in the 3 editions. I'm really looking forward to it.
Always one of the big events that folks in the sim live for. And we're now joined by Manchester, Tennessee's Briar LaPrade. And Briar, for someone who has been through this gauntlet and made it into the big show, can you just explain to everybody at home what it means just to make the field on Sunday?
Yeah, being able to make the field for the Podium 500 is honestly something that you should feel accomplished about, because the names that you see register for this race and make the main event, they're just honestly big names that you want to race against. Personally, I've never locked in just based on qualifying, but I've had to go through those duels, and the stress does get to me, but you just gotta work through it calmly and make sure you lock in, finishing I think top 18 for that. But it's always a great time. I enjoy my time doing these kind of events, and especially this one, because this one to me personally just kicks off this racing season in a really fun way.
As a driver, do you get a sense of just how big it is when you get to Saturday and you see all the names that are on that list? What's the feeling like to be part of an event that is so huge and is rivaled by few across the service?
Yeah, honestly, just the feelings I get personally, just seeing the names and everyone that I'm going up against. The day before, I'm just thinking, like what could possibly come out of this? Sometimes you just sit there and get nervous just thinking about all the crazy things that could happen. But eventually, when it comes race time, it's time to strap in and just get ready to go and do what you got to do out there and do the best you can. It's plate racing; anything can happen, but you just got to do the best of what you have.
And for those who haven't entered the Podium 500 in past seasons or might be on the fence, might not necessarily know what to expect, why should drivers enter this special event in particular? Why should they compete in the Podium 500 next February?
Well, like you guys were saying earlier, if you're looking to kind of get your name out there, I feel like this is a great event to sort of kickstart all that and get it going. It's fixed setup, so you don't have any setup worries. You just get some friends together if you need to work together. It's plate racing. You're gonna have a couple of friend groups and teams, all that working together, and it just like we said earlier, just getting into that main event and seeing all those big names. And if you make that field, you should feel accomplished because you're in the main event. You've made it. It's just a awesome feeling.
Briar, thanks so much for the time, and we look forward to seeing you next February as you try and make your way into the field once more.
No problem. Thank you for having me. Can't wait.
And speaking of getting your name in the hat for February, registration is now live on the Podium Esports website. You can head to podiumesports.com/podium-500 to register for the great virtual race, the third annual edition coming up this February 7th, 2021. $10 is all it takes to get your name in the hat. So go head on over to the Podium website. The full rule book is there. Schedules are there. The registration forms are there. Everything you need to get yourself acquainted with Podium 500 event happenings. All right on the website, all in one place. PodiumEsports.com. That's it for the Podium 500 preview. We'll be able to talk about it more over the course of the next month. But for now, we've got a Pro Series race to get you to. So we'll take a quick break. And on the other side, we will be back with the finale of the eNASCAR iRacing Pro Series for 2020. 16 more spots to lock in to next year's eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series. We'll find out who in just a moment.
From one beachside speedway in Florida to another, we shift the conversation from what's to come with the Podium 500 to what's happening right now with the eNASCAR iRacing Pro Series. It is finale night, where by the end of 201 miles at Homestead-Miami Speedway, we will know the 21 drivers who will move into the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series 2021. Good evening, sim racing fans, and welcome to Podium Esports coverage of Round 6, the championship race for the eNASCAR iRacing Pro Series. Jacob Seelman joined once again by James Pike, Blake McCandless, Justin Prince going to be down on pit road. And James, it all comes down to this. We got 134 laps at Homestead-Miami. We've got a champion to crown, and we've got 21 golden tickets. 5 of them are already punched, but we've got 16 more golden tickets to punch over the course of this race to determine who is going to join the drivers already locked into the Coke field next year.
At the top of the point standings, it's a three-way battle between Nathan Lyon, Isaac Gann, and Ashton Crowder. 2 of those drivers have victories in this Pro Series so far. Lyon's had a string of excellent finishes. He's the points leader coming into tonight. So we'll crown a champion of the Pro Series as those drivers return or enter Coke Series competition for the first time in Isaac Gann's case in a few months' time in 2021. Down at the bottom, though, you look at this stretch from Matt Busa all the way to Chris Overland. They are spread out by maybe a handful, and a big handful if that. 6 points is where Busa is above the cutoff line. Overland is 5 points back of it. It is effectively 10 drivers for 3 spots, and there are big names right in the middle of that bunch. Busa's there, Brandon Cattell is there, winner of the Firecracker 400, Derek Justice, Brian Schoenberg, Malik Ray, who just got partnered here on Twitch, Ryan Doucette, Dylan Duval, Alan Bose, Santiago Tires. There are a few more names that mathematically have a shot, but those are the ones that we're going to be watching this evening because they are the ones that are right in the thick of this and may be Coke Series drivers next year or may not. We'll have to see.
And Blake McCandless will go through the scenarios a little bit more as we go through the course of this broadcast. Who stands out to you most below the cut line coming into this that you think can break their way into the field tonight?
Well, I think you can't go wrong when talking about Malik Ray, right? I've been hearing a lot about how fast he has been in practice in his preliminary testing for this event. Put a lot of effort, as you well know, to not only get into the race last week because of the license level problems that he was facing, but obviously his chance to once again return to the series and out tonight potentially, but I've heard he has been very fast. We'll have to watch him. I think more than anybody that is hovering right around that cut line, I think he's a good driver to pick if you're looking for somebody to try to race their way in.
We just got to look there at where in the virtual world we are. 18 to 20 degrees of progressive banking at this 1.5 mile oval. Pretty symmetrical. And Justin Prince, the real wild card that comes into play tonight with the updated build comes in the form of a line that we get to run against the wall. And that could make or break a driver's race.
Absolutely, and many drivers I spoke to in preparation for tonight have mentioned that it took them a few runs to get used to some of the visual updates as well to Homestead-Miami Speedway that have come recently here. It's going to be where some drivers are going to be running towards where their usual seams would be while trying to make sure at the same time some of them would likely be up towards the wall. Keep in mind that many of these drivers have spent days upon days testing for this race tonight. As well, on top of things, the pressure is on not just for the recognition for our top points runners, but potential contract negotiations, because think about it this way. How big would it be on a resume to say, I won the eNASCAR Pro Series, to be able to walk into a room and negotiate with a team for the Coke Series in the future?
We had him on a couple of minutes ago when we were talking about the Podium 500. I want to pull Briar LaPrade in as a driver for a minute before we go green. Briar, have you had a chance to work at all at Homestead since the new build? I'm curious if you've got any thoughts on the wall riding that we may see some of these guys do tonight.
Yeah, I've gotten a chance to run some laps here with my lockdown racing teammates. Ran against the wall a couple laps there. Felt nice to get up against the wall with the new bubble that iRacing has implemented. Yeah, just being able to rip the fence feels great.
How big a difference feel-wise was it compared to what you guys were working with before?
It definitely feels different. With the new bubble, you can definitely feel the car. It feels like it's just being barely pushed away from the wall, which is a crazy feeling that, since we didn't have it before, but now that we have it, it feels awesome.
We'll keep Briar on hand if we have a couple of things we can point out as the race goes, but definitely a little bit different perspective from what we always get in the booth. About a minute away from wrapping up qualifying and heading down to the grid. And Blake, we're looking at the camera shot from Ryan Bauer, who just showed it to us. There's the other variable, sunset. This race going to be ever changing as we go through tonight.
It will be, and not only when you talk about weather, obviously that goes without saying, but even visually with this track, you mentioned some of the visual changes, a little bit of a darker surface out here at Homestead-Miami Speedway. A lot of these drivers, they find as the lights come on, as that sun continues to go down, it kind of improves a little bit of the changes that we've seen in this new build at this track. So for a lot of guys, they may be hitting their line a little more consistently with the added grip that they'll have at night.
All storylines that we talk about now that we may just see play out here in a couple of minutes, less than 20 seconds to go in qualifying. And the biggest thing too, James, there are some guys who still need to have good runs tonight. Zach Novak isn't safe. He had to have a good qualifying run, told me earlier today, and maybe on his way to doing that.
May well just be. He's got the fastest time in qualifying, at least up to now, so it could play out in his favor, and boy, he would certainly love to have a good run like that. He comes in tonight 17 points to the good. Might be able to breathe a little bit easier if he can maintain that track position.
We're going to shift to the starting grid now, take you back to the racetrack, and it is enough, as a matter of fact, by about a quarter tenth. Zach Novak, the 2019 Coke Series champion, puts himself on the pole for the Pro Series finale, joined by Jake Matheson on that front row. Brian Schoenberg, another driver in need of a good run, rolls off third. Ashton Crowder in the running for the championship starts fifth, alongside Zach Nichols. You scroll a little further back, another of those locked-in drivers, Mitchell DeYoung, starts inside row number 4. Donovan Strauss not really in a position to make anything happen tonight, but his best start of the Pro Series season on row 5 alongside Steven Wilson, James.
Coming in the 11th spot on the grid, Nathan Lyon chasing a championship of the Pro Series, as is Isaac Gann. Santiago Tires, one of those drivers near the bubble who needs a good run. Femi Olan, with his consistency, just needs a solid run to lock himself in the Coke Series for 21. Matt Boosh is part of that mix in the back, who's going to be fighting for a Pro Series spot. Garrett Maines is locked in. Michael Guerrilla, Ryan Doucette, Denny Hansen, all with lots of work to do. Dylan Duvall in the mix, though, for a spot in the Coke Series. He's just behind the cutoff marker.
He is, and when you look at drivers that are further down the grid, you really start to look at the points implications of it. I look at Derek Justice starting in 24th. Obviously, he needs to be above that cut line to try and make his way forward. And you look on your screen there, slowest driver that made a time in qualifying on the outside of road number 17. I know there's a lot of Malik Ray fans out there. Unfortunately for him, just was not able to execute it in qualifying. So he is going to have one heck of a task in front of him to try to get back above that cut line.
And we get a really neat shot from Ryan Bauer down in the production trailer of this grid as we get set to roll off. And again, Novak starting from pole, one of those drivers that is in solid position, but certainly not safe. He needs to basically end up in the top 15 by the end of this race tonight. 16th or better for Novak, regardless of what anybody does, will clinch him in. And then there's guys like Malik Ray, Ryan Doucette, Dylan Duvall, who need to be in the top 3, or in Duvall's case, he can only clinch with a victory. So a lot of drivers with a lot of very different agendas tonight. Some chasing a championship, some chasing a victory, all chasing a lock-in spot at this point. Justin Prince, any final words from pit road before we go green?
You mentioned speaking with Zach Novak, also mentioned he earlier today mentioned there's pressure for him for sure, but I think going for the Pro Series gave him the confidence and to reset his expectations for himself going into next year should he requalify. Tonight's qualifying performance for this race is a big part of that for the former champion. Also, for several other teams across pit road, they've mentioned that there's a lot of excitement about tonight, but as well, a lot of stress to perform and live up to expectations. The question is, which teams will perform under the pressure?
expectations are the key. Field is in turns 3 and 4, and for the final time this Pro Series season, we thank all of you for tuning in to Podium Esports coverage here at the eNASCAR iRacing Pro Series. Pace cars off, field in the hands of Zach Novak, who jumps on the gas, and we're underway. 134 laps await us from Homestead-Miami Speedway, and the final race of the eNASCAR iRacing Pro Series goes green. Novak on the jump, gets away by 4 car lengths. Brian Schoenberg jumps to second over Jake Matheson in turn 2, James.
Everybody beginning to step out here, and this track should transition significantly. We start in sunset. It will be full darkness by the time we get the checkered flag after 134 laps of racing, 201 miles, 321 kilometers. So certainly a ways to go, but everybody in the top 5 pretty well strung out. First battle side by side. Go back to just behind Mitchell DeYoung, Donovan Strauss, Stephen Wilson for 9th and 10th.
Well, you see it there for a moment. It was Taylor Hurst and Ashton Crowder. Hurst jumping up to the 5 spot. Crowder jumping back to 6, and there's a little bit of contact as we're on board. Nathan Lyon, he roots Donovan Strauss up out of the groove. Blake and tried to make the move. Will not be able to do it. He'll go under attack for the 32 of Stephen Wilson.
And you're going to see these cars sliding around a lot early on in this run. Talked to a couple of these teams, and that is one thing that seemed to be a case across the board, particularly this first 2 or 3 laps. These cars are fighting loose to have that speed on the longer run.
So we've circulated 2 laps, gotten through that cleanly. Everything's starting to settle out. Novak leading by about 2.5 car lengths, though. Schoenberg really not letting him get away here. And then back around Mitchell DeYoung. It is a hornet's nest. Ashton Crowder's back there. That's around the battle for 7th, 8th, 9th position. DeYoung side by side trying to make something happen as he looks inside the 24 of Zach Nichols for position.
I'm waiting to see if we'll have any battles up front, as looks like Schoenberg tried to peek to the inside of Novak and then thought better of it and tucked back in line. So it is indeed Mitchell DeYoung who, well, actually, no. Let's make it Zach Nichols and Donovan Strauss. That's your first side-by-side pairing now back in 8th and 9th. And they are 2 by 2 down the backstretch for about the next 10 rows, 20 cars deep.
Yeah, the second half of this field does not want to settle down early, and that could make things very interesting as we look off the back of Jake Matheson, under attack from Anthony Burrows. That's a battle for the 3rd position now as Burrows looks to the inside. He'll try to make something happen. Both of those drivers, Blake closing on Brian Schoenberg now. Schoenberg got the Rabbits jump, but he's now faded back a little bit as Novak started to pull away.
He has just a little bit, and what a drive here. A couple of Nexus Esports teammates having some great qualifying speed. And how about Walter showing up here in the top 3? Looks like he's going to be awfully sporty. And this one, as he starts to work a little bit of ground on Brian Schoenberg through 3 and 4.
Yeah, Schoenberg, I don't think, is happy with that car now that we've gotten a couple laps on the tires. Front group has really settled out, but Breyer, we look back in this pack, and it is very, very dicey. From about 10th on back, it doesn't seem like anybody really wants to play nice. They know they're trying to get as much track position as they can here early.
Yeah, absolutely. They're trying to find that bottom seam there. Looks like that right now is the fastest line to run.
So 6 laps coming when they come back to the line. Novak still trying to pull away a little bit. It's still about 2.5, 3 car lengths between he and Schoenberg at the front of the field. And Blake, if you look at Zach Novak, we were very, very worried the first half of this Pro Series season that he was going to be at risk of relegation and not even making it back to the Coke Series for 2021. If he can, even a top 2 or 3 performance, but if he could win this race tonight, how big a statement is that as we watch the battle for second behind him for Novak as far as confidence and maybe reminding these guys that, oh, by the way, he is still a former champion of this series.
And not only a former champion, this was exactly the racetrack that he got it done. And if you could just remember back to that incredible battle that won him his eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series crown. And Novak, with his back against the wall, that is when it has really come in this Pro Series. Struggled early on, but ever since then has possessed a lot of speed and really shown that when it comes down to it, Novak is going to be in this thing, and obviously out front he puts it on pole. And I'm telling you what, that Sunoco Toyota looks awfully fast at the moment.
You saw it back behind Anthony Burrows moving his way to second past Brian Schoenberg. That's big on a couple of levels, James, because when we look at the potential scenarios for tonight, Schoenberg, if he gets a top 3, he's in. But for Anthony Burrows, he needs a good finish, and he needs a little bit of help from some of the drivers that are close to that bubble line if he wants to be able to advance after the drop is applied. This is, I don't want to say it's a must-win for Burrows, but it is a must-run well if he has a prayer of moving into Coke Series contention for 21.
He'll need Walter Power and then some to make it in. He came into tonight 14 points behind Dylan Duvall, who held the lap cutoff spot entering this evening. Right now, Burrows running P2, Duvall running in 16th. The difference between those two spots in points, 14. It's going to be a nail-biter all night for the 62 if this keeps up, Chicken.
And we'll remind everybody watching at home that we don't necessarily have the luxury of live points because for a driver who has a bad race tonight, this could be their drop. We're not going to know the exact scenario until that drop is applied at the end of tonight's race. But what we do know is we have a battle for the lead. Blake McCandless headed for turn 1. Anthony Burrows to the inside of Novak. No contest. Move Burrows to the top of the leaderboard.
And how about Anthony Burrows, where we were just talking about, you see a lot of organizations that have really come to the front of the field, but right now Nexus perhaps flexing their muscles here with both Burrows, who's able to work his way through traffic up to the top spot. I imagine Jake Matheson may not be too far behind as you see Novak pretty much just surrenders that top spot to Anthony Burrows.
And I have to believe, Breyer, from a driver's standpoint, you're 12 laps into a 134-lap race. And if you're somebody like Zach Novak, you know that one position isn't necessarily going to make or break your night. There's really no point, is there, in contesting a spot too hard this early in the run if you know you've got a fast car?
Yeah, definitely not this early. The point of the Pro Series is trying to make it inside the top 21 and get inside that Coke Series. So for being it this early on, you definitely want to just play the points game for now.
And for those wondering, where Breyer's experience comes from, he was part of the Road to Pro, which was one step down from the Pro Series. And you were within a whisker at times of being in contention to advance into this Pro Series. I know came up a little bit short in that regard, but I have to imagine that fueled the fire for 21 for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't wait to get back competitive racing. I've missed it, honestly. Starting up here in March is when the Road to Pro season begins, so I can't wait for that.
13 laps go on the leaderboard this time by, and now a little bit of blocking going on around that top 5 position. Pick up the battle for third. Blake McCandless, Brian Schoenberg, Jake Matheson. Matheson had a look, no dice. Schoenberg through the block almost down to that white line on the bottom of the racetrack.
And I think that's what you're going to see. It seems like drivers who are able to make their way through the field are able to do it, kind of wrapping that bottom seam that we've seen all of these drivers kind of tiptoeing around the entire run, and Schoenberg trying to defend all that track position. But you see they are nose to tail for about 15 cars directly behind them, not a car length between any of them. And of course, Schoenberg going to go down there and try to defend, keep that track position. But of course, you got to mention Schoenberg above the cut line, but not by much. The last thing he needs is to spin off of the bumper of that Mustang.
Based on the math, where he sits right now, he would advance. He can guarantee himself, no matter what anybody else does, with a top 3 finish or better. He sits third right now with 15 laps complete. Let's go to pit road. Justin Prince
was talking with them earlier on today, where he mentioned with this track this week has been more difficult than he thought it would be. It took him a lot to get used to the visual changes to Homestead-Miami, and he wasn't sure if he had figured it out when I spoke with him. As well, though, keep in mind with North Force Racing, it's a partnership that developed throughout the last Coke season for him, where he spent much of the year on his own and working with David Varela as well on setups as well as preparation. Eventually it led to working in the RTP side for North Force Racing, and that is now where he wants to be right now, holding on to third position. He mentioned if he makes the 2021 Coke Series, it's the place he wants to be, and it mean the world to him.
We've talked about it a bunch, and James Pike, you and I probably know the battles that Brian Schoenberg has had more than once. I mean, this is not the first time he's had his back up against the wall in terms of trying to make it back into sim racing's top level on the iRacing platform. For Brian, he's been in all but one, I believe, seasons of the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing series. He's about as veteran as it gets, and to hear him, to know just what tonight would mean, to be able to put himself back in the top level for 21. I mean, that tells you how important this is to some of these guys that, you know, I don't want to say necessarily have made a living of it, but it's part of their life. It's what they do.
And especially for someone like Schoenberg, who has been one of the longest-standing competitors, like you mentioned. Ray Alfalfa comes up there, but you know, this is a driver who was competing back in the days when it was Richard Towler and Josh Berry, and drivers of that ilk were competing regularly in what was then the Drivers' World Championship. So Schoenberg has a lot on his plate here tonight, but I think it's been really impressive to see how he has stepped up, especially the second half of this Pro Series campaign, after it didn't start well for him. It was much like his Coach Series campaign this year, where he did not have a lot of good luck anyway, left, right, center. But he has come on in these final 3 weeks, and he has driven himself into a position where he can race his way in. By no means is it a guarantee, but Schoenberg has at least got himself here, and that in and of itself says something about the talent behind the number 55 car.
Quick battle for position to note. Ashton Crowder moving himself back into the top 5, just repassed Taylor Hurst for that spot as we work lap number 20, Blake. And that, I guess that's one thing that we haven't really touched on a whole lot before we took the green flag, but those top 3 or 4 guys, you've got Nathan Lyon, Isaac Gann, Crowder is in there, Mitchell DeYoung within striking distance. Those are the top 4 guys fighting for this Pro Series championship. They're already locked in. They don't have to worry about their place in the Coca-Cola Series for next year. It's already secure. They can focus solely on racing one another, trying to make points on one another tonight for a chance at the championship in this Pro Series, and a mark that will remain on their resume going forward for a long time to come.
It certainly will, and every single position matters at this point. When you have a season where you have only 5 races that are going to count for the points that you'll collect, you're not going to see a whole lot of guys, even those of you who, of course, you mentioned, we have a close points battle for the championship as well. It's not just those guys around the cut line. There's a lot of bragging rights along for everyone back here. I was just looking and riding along with Derek Justice. They were 3 wide back here for 2 laps for 24th, and that's just that's what these guys are going to do. They're not going to lay over. If anything, I think you're going to see more aggression perhaps tonight than you've seen all season long with everything that's on the line, because it's obviously one thing to talk about it and have something in the future, but like you said, for a lot of these guys, this is part of their livelihood. This is it. You're either in or you're out for an entire year. So these guys are not going to hold any punches tonight.
No, they're not. There's 16 guys that control their own destiny. There are multiple others who have a mathematical shot but may need some help depending on how the rest of it shakes out. One driver who has really kind of shocked me early on, James, because I thought he was going to be better and just has not been able to dig out of a disastrous qualifying position. Started outside row 17 and 34th, but Malik Ray basically needed a top 3 tonight in order to lock himself in, and he is buried right now, deep below the top 20 in this field.
It was not a good qualifying run for Malik Ray, and even though he's gained some track position, he's up to 27th, currently fighting Chris Overland, who also is around that bubble and may or may not be a Coach Series competitor next season. But Ray is, I think at this point, almost effectively at the whim of whatever happens to the other drivers that are near that cut line. I don't know if his destiny is going to be entirely in his hands. If he wants to bring it under his control, he has a significant amount of work to do, and it's not impossible, but it certainly is improbable at this rate.
I would agree with that. That's the 51 of Malik Ray, who is buried deep in this field as we get a look on board around this Homestead-Miami Speedway. The battle for the lead beginning to tighten up again. That was on board with Zach Novak, who is close to within a car length of Anthony Burrows. This is the race for the lead on track. Burrows needs to win and have a little bit of help to make the Coke Series. Novak, if he runs where he's at, he's in, Blake McCandless, and I have to believe for the 2019 Coke champ, that is a pretty comforting feeling to know the kind of speed that's on board that number 90 Toyota right now.
It very much is. I was thinking that perhaps Burrows and Matheson were going to start gapping this field a little bit, but perhaps it looks like Zach Novak just waiting for that car to eventually come around and work his way up through traffic. If Novak can get by Burrows here, you have to believe there's a pretty good chance not only Schoenberg may follow him, but he may just completely check out here, because it just seems like a lot of these races, we've seen a lot of comers and goers at this point in the race. I mean, we're already at lap 27, but for the most part, it's been all track position. Roughly everyone is around where they qualified, and it seems like kind of the different setups on these cars haven't had their time to flex their muscles. As Novak to the bottom, and he's going to clear the 62, move Zach Novak back to the point here at Homestead-Miami.
That is a lead change on lap 27 as Zach Novak retakes command here at the 1.5-mile Homestead-Miami Speedway. It's Novak over Burrows at the front. Brian Schoenberg rides third. Jake Matheson and Ashton Crowder the rest of the top 5, followed by Taylor Hurst, Donovan Strauss, Santiago Tires, Mitchell DeYoung, and Nathan Lyon through the rest of the top 10 as you see Crowder duck down to that middle lane of the racetrack. We're going to go side by side. You won't miss a moment of the action. We'll be back to close in on pit stops here in round 6 championship night for the eNASCAR iRacing Pro Series on Podium Esports.
One weekend, any driver can go from nothing to something. Daniel Everhart winning the Podium Esports Daytona 500. And something to nothing. Oh, contact! Justice gets turned in front of the field. There it Justice gets... In an instant. Register now at podiumesports.com.
Welcome back to Podium Esports coverage. Welcome back to finale for the eNASCAR iRacing Pro Series from Homestead-Miami Speedway. Jacob Seelman joined by James Pike and Blake McCandless. Justin Prince down on pit road with Ryan Bauer and Zach Johnson in the production trailer, keeping us going tonight. And we continue to work closer and closer towards pit stops, working 35 of 134 laps complete, and Zach Novak finally starting to pull away just a little bit. It's about 0.7 of a second between he and Anthony Burrows since Novak went back to the top of the board some 8 laps ago. Brian Schoenberg sits in the 3rd spot. Taylor Hurst Taylor Hurst has just moved up to 3rd past Brian Schoenberg, with Jake Matheson still back in the top 5. And Donovan Strauss at the 45. Blake has done himself a nice job. He's quietly kind of lurking back there around the 6th, 7th position, but has come forward a couple positions in the last few laps. Not really anything to play for as far as the points go. He was eliminated coming into tonight with no chance of being able to crack the Coke Series field, but this has to be a confidence-building run for the young gun out of Georgia.
It really does. When you think about the just absolute grind it is to get to this point, to go through an entire year of the eNASCAR iRacing Road to Pro Series, and then to come back, be able to run up here, run competitively, and then, of course, it's over the course of a year. It's only 6 races, and luck has not been on the side of Donovan Strauss in that JDR Graphics Toyota, and unfortunate for him, it's just resulted in a scenario where he's going to have to go back through Road to Pro to get another opportunity at the series next season. But, one thing that can kind of build momentum and really just help the confidence level of Donovan Strauss is to get up, running this race, and he's obviously been very, very fast tonight. Qualified 9th and has moved up to 6th, and I don't imagine that Seth DeMert would be too far behind. Didn't have as good of an effort in qualifying, but at least has worked his way up a couple of spots up to 19th, and of course he's somebody we'll have to watch as he was very close on the cut line coming in.
Justin Prince, I want to go to you on pit road, because one of the drivers who was up in the championship mix has faded a good bit while we were away. Any word right now on Nathan Lyon? Because he's one of the drivers that we're looking at as far as, trying to win this championship, and he's completely dropped off the radar at the end of this first run.
When I was speaking with one of the Dead Zone Racing drivers and Michael Guerrilla about this race earlier on tonight, he mentioned for them trying to keep everything gathered up on the speed and figuring things out. One of the main keys has been long run. Many different drivers have also mentioned the need to essentially get along with the different lines. But when it comes to the trouble when it comes to the pack, it's right now for Nathan Lyon a -14 on the race. It's not been looking good the past few laps, especially with how things have been going, and he's been shuffled essentially to the 2nd groove on up on the racetrack. Drivers are trying the wall at the moment now, around where he's at the moment, but still are trying to fight hard for grip.
And Justin, another driver who picked up some damage while we were away at commercial and has pretty much dropped almost to the tail of this field, but Matt Busa in a lot of trouble from what I understand, and not happy over the radio either.
Yep, indeed, and Matt Busa with a bit of damage as well. Vincente Salas with damage. Eric J. Smith smacked the wall trying to pry the outside wall. Especially when it comes to the case of Busa, it's really been hurting his speed in the get-go down the straight lines. It's not going to help, especially since he's got right front damage. And keep in mind, it was going to be tight for the timing for this race earlier on tonight to be able to make sure they get in. By the way, pit stops it away. Mitchell DeYoung off and away.
Yeah, Mitchell DeYoung, Blake McCandless, the first driver to come down and basically of the front runners bail out. He was right on the fringes of that top 10, and we're about to see exactly how much fresh tires mean for these guys that are making early pit stops, because tire wear at Homestead-Miami is like few other places, not just on the sim, but in real life in general.
And you're exactly right. We're going to see Mitchell DeYoung here just absolutely steamroll this field. And, I can't really blame DeYoung right here. Obviously locked into the Coke Series next season. He has an opportunity here to just try a short pit here on what's going to eventually be a 2-stop race. Not going to be a scenario where any of these drivers are going to be able to make it on just one pit stop to the end. That's not going to stop a lot of these guys, I think, from perhaps trying to run a full tank of fuel out. But nevertheless, DeYoung going to try a little bit of something different to gain some track position. And I think this will be kind of the first of a long line of cars that we'll see come down pit road in the next 4 or 5 laps or so. Hearing Alan Bose has also decided to come to pit road as well.
You want to talk about threading the needle, James Pike? Watch what Mitchell DeYoung is doing right here. Outside, inside, it doesn't matter. He is putting that number 12 BRS car wherever the rest of his competitors are not. And we go on board just to see the closing rate. I mean, new tires versus old tires. It doesn't get a whole lot easier than this. 3 wide down the straightaway.
I love moments like these in races where you have green flag pit stops because you can see the difference in speed on old tires and new tires very, very obviously. And that's exactly what Mitchell DeYoung is showing us. He's already got a spot locked into the Coke Series for next year. So this is just a fun run for him to try and see what he can get done at Homestead. But tons of work for DeYoung and just the speed of this 12 car for VRS on the outside. Unbelievable work from DeYoung to get it done and gain as many spots. Of course, he's only 37th in the running order because he pitted, but he's one of the fastest cars on track.
Now, that's brilliant right now, and Brian LaPrade, I'll bring you back in from a driver's perspective on this. It looks brilliant right now. The problem is, at the end of the run, he's going to be on the oldest tires, and it comes back to bite you after a while at this racetrack in particular, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. The question is what kind of price is he going to pay here for pitting this early compared to the pretty much rest of the field here?
So if you break it up like this, and Justin Prince, this is about the threshold where we expected to see pretty much everybody. If you're going to do a proper, a true two-stop race, you pit 45, 90, and then run it out to the end. But somebody like Zach Novak's maybe pushing it a little bit longer here. We're working lap 46, and he, Taylor Hurst, Anthony Burrows, Brian Schoenberg, a lot of these front runners trying to stretch it a couple laps and maybe have a little bit fresher tires later in that second run.
And it's something that was seen in the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series at Homestead a couple times throughout the year, where drivers would try and push it and get the freshest tires possible. The overcut has been a viable strategy over the past few weeks on iRacing. Keep this in mind, it was Zach Novak who brought that base possible strategy. He didn't have a clue at the time when speaking with them how the strategy could play out tonight. For many of these drivers, it's really just been about feel and control of the race cars, it seems, for tonight, and for a lot of these teams in the discussions in preparation for tonight.
For those wondering about the overall Pro Series title tilt, it's kind of hard to put our finger on the pulse of that right now, Blake McCandless. But the two drivers I'm watching that have pretty much stayed glued together through this first run, Isaac Gann in the 22 in 8th, and Ashton Crowder in the 98 in 9th. Those two, should we keep this going and everybody else kind of cycles out where they may. We've seen Nathan Lyons struggle pretty heavily. Mitchell DeYoung now off strategy. The battle for the Pro Series title could potentially come down to Gann versus Crowder when it's all over.
I think you're right, and I think it's going to be a game of cat and mouse, not only for that battle for the championship, but for a lot of these guys that are kind of just above or below the cut line. You have to think for a race like this, you can go about 57, 58 lap-ish is about the fuel window, or the maximum of the fuel window for a lot of these drivers. And, I think for a lot of these guys, we've seen the overcut the undercut not exactly work a lot this pro season, but the one thing we have seen are caution flags come out in the midst of green flag pit stops, and the last thing you want to do if you're one of those drivers that is really close or just above the cut line is to pit and then get trapped under yellow and have that affect whether you move on into the Coke Series next season. So I think what you're seeing right now is a lot of these guys who are pretty good on points, they may even give up a couple of spots here. They're going to stay out, lose a little bit of time, but that's okay, because the last thing in the world they want to happen is to pit too early and have a caution completely ruin their chances. So I think that's what you're going to see. A lot of these guys up front are above that cut line, and I don't imagine it'll be too much longer before they're on pit road, but they're going to try to run it as long as they can.
Well, we'll see pit stops right now. Your race leader, Zach Novak, is down in front of Justin Prince.
Coming into the pit lane, he has had a car that's been lightning quick throughout the night. He said earlier today that he felt the car was strong once again. He felt he struggled a little bit in practice, but expected to compete in the top 10 for tonight. Well, tonight, he's been right on point. Into the pit box he goes. Goodyear Eagles going onto the race car on the right side of the car. Sunoco Racing Fuel coming into the machine for Zach Novak. It's been a lightning quick day for him so far, and what has been for him an unpredictable race. Anthony Burrows will also join him and several others at the end of the lane.
Taylor Hurst stays out at least one more lap. Now Hurst coming down pit road. That'll turn the lead over to Brian Schoenberg. Jake Matheson, they have stayed out. Isaac Gann cycles up to the 3 position. So pit stops in full swing right now. And that is going to make this oh so interesting as this develops on. This is the kind of Homestead race where you keep this going, James Pike, and it is going to make for some really juicy stories.
Who comes down early in the window and who comes down late in the window is Brian Schoenberg. Pitch for the lead, and cars around over in turn 4. Big accident off the corner. I see Justin Bolton. Garrett Maines is involved. I think it may have been Taylor Hurst that went around. We'll double check. Maybe Steven Wilson involved too. But a big accident off of turn 4 to bring out the yellow flag.
Oh my, oh my. And just when you thought this couldn't get any more interesting, Blake McCandless, there's the wrench in the works, isn't it?
And that is exactly why I was talking about you do not want to pit too early, and boy, does this really shake things up here. We've seen it time and time again in this Pro Series that, and I think it's going to start around Zach Nichols, who was actually trying to make his way down to pit road. It was in the middle lane. I don't think Justin Bolton anticipated that he was going to come down pit road, or just Nichols was a little too high when trying to cut down, and we'll see it right here. The 10 yeah, there you see it right there, and Nichols probably just a little bit too high on the track right there to try and make something work. Steven Wilson gets a fair amount of damage in that, obviously Justin Bolton, so a lot of implications here, but what this helps is the guys that stayed out, Matheson, Gann, Doucette, Malik Ray had not come down pit road yet. Those guys are the beneficiaries of this caution.
Whew. So this is a moment where for us, we catch our breaths as you just finished getting a look at the replay there, but there are a lot of drivers right now that are not very happy over the radios, and Justin Prince, I can't say that I blame them. That's one of those where you look at how it happened, how it developed, and you almost think perhaps it could have been avoided.
Yeah, especially since, for one, trying to move from the second lane for the pit stops is always very difficult with drivers on fresh tires coming right behind you and quickly. But the second thing is, when it comes to Homestead-Miami Speedway, and drivers have talked about this in the past, is it's one of the more difficult pit road entries in all of eNASCAR because it is a very abrupt banking difference, cutting right from the progressive banking straight down towards the barrels. Several drivers in the past have either blown tires on the access roads in the past when they used to run there in 2019, or since then have slid their way into said barrels or the safer barrier. This is a tricky pit lane, and now their fears have been realized. As it was expected to be a weird race. It just hit the weird button.
How big is this, though, as we see things start to cycle through, Blake, for somebody like Novak and Burrows, who dominated this race before they pitted? They were lucky enough to cycle through and still be on the lead lap when the caution waved. They cycle back up inside the top 5, and for both of them who needed strong runs tonight, and I would argue have the 2 most dominant cars so far, that is exactly how they were hoping this would work out, but certainly not the circumstances that maybe they wanted to see.
No, I think you're exactly right, and cycling around right there is just it's just a bit of a stroke of luck for a lot of these guys, but you know, that's just what happens. That's what we've seen time and time again. I think this is the 3rd or 4th race out of the 6 that we've had in this Pro Series where we have seen a caution in the midst of a green flag pit cycle. So it's just one of those things that a couple of guys get very lucky, but you think about a lot of drivers who obviously either are wrapped up in that wreck or are trapped a lap down, or they're going to be forced to take the wave around here. They're going to be on old tires. Seth DeMerchant, Michael Guest, obviously heavy damage on his machine. He's lost the hood. Steven Wilson, who needed a good run tonight. So just so many guys that you know, this is just kind of what it's been in this Pro Series, that you just want to stay out, it seems, as long as possible. And what this is going to set up in the second half is whether you kind of take this last run and try to work it all the way to halfway, or you try to stretch it and maybe hope for another yellow.
And James Pike, you want to talk about the driver who I would argue out of all that came out with a golden horseshoe as we get to get set to go back green, Malik Ray, who sits 9th. He needs a top 3 to guarantee advancing, but I would imagine with some of the chaos that we just saw, 9th would do him an awful lot of good at being close. I would think he needs a couple more spots to really be secure in what he's got, but he couldn't have asked for much better after starting 34th to be where he is right now with 56 laps complete.
It will be incredibly tight, but yes, I can only imagine how big it would be for him to get Twitch partner and to lock himself back into the Coke Series all in the span of about 72 hours. That's a big week for anybody and a big week for Malik if he can hold on.
Getting set to come back to green. It'll be 56 laps in the books. Still a good ways to go. It is Taylor Hurst who settles out in the number 2 spot behind Brian Schoenberg, who leads the field back to turn 1. Zach Novak on the attack in 3rd, trying to close some ground. And first side-by-side battle, Jake Matheson and Ryan Doucette, Derek Justice all back there. They're going at it. Isaac Gann actually jumping up on the outside to do battle with Matheson. Blake?
And Matheson will shut the door there on Gann as he closes the deal. He's moving up into the top 5 with the rest of his teammates. Big step out of Matheson, though. Here comes Isaac Gann trying to get up back into the top 5.
Isaac Gann in what could be a championship clinching performance as we see the battle ahead for 3rd. Anthony Burrows back to the inside on lap 58, takes the 3 spot away from Novak, who it seemed took a couple laps to really get that car underneath him before he came back to play. Further back in the pack around Ashton Crowder, 3 wide just outside the top 10.
All over the place are Mitchell DeYoung, Nathan Lyon is in that mix, Brian Mercurio there on the outside, Eric Smith joining this battle, Eddie Kerner there as they continue to go 3 wide down the front straightaway.
3 wide is not what you want to be doing in the middle of progressive banking at Homestead-Miami Speedway. There are lanes to race, but it can get very tight. Isaac Gann all over the back bumper of the 2019 Coke champion. Gann wants another position, and Novak may be fading a little bit here. The double deuce to the inside. Isaac Gann looking for 4th in turn 3.
And Gann has been so strong. Obviously, the winner last time out at Charlotte, and it looks like he's going to be able to pass without a fight, so move him up into 4th. Now Novak in that battle with Matheson as they're working into turn 1 and 2. Novak on the top and Matheson on the bottom.
Battle for the race lead. Brian Schoenberg, 55. Taylor Hurst, 74. They were going at it, and it is now Taylor Hurst who has jumped to the top of the leaderboard as they exit turn 2. Work down the back straightaway. They were side by side for a moment across the line. Schoenberg seated way, and it's now Hurst who moves in to the number 1 position. And this is a big night for Taylor Hurst. He was one of those who realistically just needed to be in the top half to be safe, James Pike. But if he could ice his participation in returning to the Coke Series with a victory, boy, a statement that would be.
This is more than enough for the driver out of Winston-Salem, North Carolina to return to the top level of stock car sim racing. He's been there before, and I feel like we're seeing some of that experience come through on the 74, and it's been a bit of a revival for him, and we've seen a few other drivers like him. Alan Bowes hasn't had quite the campaign that he wanted, but there have been a crop of drivers who have come back to the Pro Series and back into this level of competition because they've seen what the Coke Series has become. It's just gotten bigger and bigger every year as Anthony Burrows will drive to the inside and Walter will take the lead back from the 74. But it's a testament to just how much the series has grown in the last 10 years. The drivers who were involved way back like Hurst and Bowes are jumping back into the fray.
They go back around Malik Ray. It was Danny Hansen who looks to his inside in the 42. Hansen looking for a little bit of room to race. That's a battle now for the 9th position as Malik Ray falls back in the Rowdy Energy Machine underneath. Ashton Crowder just outside the top 10 in 11th, but with Gann running 2nd right now, not only is that a statement performance out of Isaac Gann, could be a championship to win before it's all over. This Hornet's nest, though, around Crowder is an absolute mess. Mitchell DeYoung back there as well, Blake the canvas.
And DeYoung was actually a benefit because he was able to pit so early. He unlapped himself, so he was on the lead lap and able to take fresh tires. So his counterparts that had to take the wave around, they're on old tires. DeYoung was able to come down, get 4 fresh Goodyear Eagles, of which they have 4 sets on pit road to start this race. So DeYoung now down to 2 tire sets. But you have to think, with the kind of long runs we've seen in this series, you have to think DeYoung in a decent position to still have a way to run at the end, and it looks like that VRS Chevrolet starting to come to life, goes to the bottom and makes an easy pass on Blade Witt. Perhaps one of the biggest surprises of this pro season, Blade Witt, but that'll be a battle and a move forward for Mitchell DeYoung to 14th.
Another driver who has really turned the wick up and was a beneficiary of the caution, James Spike, the ice cream man. Derek Justice has found his way into a top 7 running position, needs to be 4th or better to guarantee a Coke spot outright, but he wasn't even in the conversation 25 laps ago, and now he's right in the middle of this battle among the top 6 or 7 drivers.
Throw into the group with Malik Ray of drivers who really benefited from that yellow flag and whose races completely changed fortune as soon as we got that caution. Justice has had the speed. I don't know if he's had the finishes that are reflective of the pace that he's had in this Pro Series, but he's been fast enough to be one of the top 20, and we'll see whether or not it holds out. In the meantime, though, let's just go to Justin Prince for a report on pit road.
Yes, indeed. And some of the drivers who have been having some good statement runs throughout this, we mentioned Taylor Hurst. He was talked about by Zach Novak as one of his personal favorites, not just because of his teammate, because he was one of the best in the series on slick racetracks. Think about it this way. For Taylor Hurst, he won back at Chicagoland in 2017 in the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series to be able to find his way in victory lane. That's a track that can get very slick, especially when it gets hot. For him, he's been lightning quick throughout the night as well. You mentioned Danny Hansen as well, also having some good speed as well. He put in a lot of work the past couple weeks with Ross Chastain as well as with various others. He mentioned that his goal, try and just do the best he can with the car and just do what he does every week, essentially. Him and Adam Gilliland have been working hard on their setups throughout the preparation for this race tonight.
So as we come to the stripe to complete 67 of 134, that will mark the halfway point of tonight's race. And for the final time in this Pro Series season, it's time to bring you the iRacing Midway Race Break, brought to you by iRacing, the world's premier online racing game. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat to experience the newest form of competitive motorsport, virtual racing, all from your home PC. Race virtually in Australian supercars, IndyCars, IMSA sports cars, NASCAR, the World of Outlaws, and more. And working a Hornet's nest behind the front couple who have settled themselves out. Isaac Gann all of a sudden leads this party over Anthony Burrows and Jake Matheson. Brian Schoenberg sits 4th, and Ryan Doucette, don't think we've talked about him yet tonight, has worked his way up to 5th. 6th is Derek Justice. 7th, Taylor Hurst. 8th is Nathan Lyon. The Hornet's nest from 9th on back right now is Eddie Kerner and Zach Novak, James.
Kerner scored in 10th that last time by. 11th is the 98 of Ashton Crowder, who went to victory lane at Dover a few weeks ago. Malik Ray in 12th, fighting for his spot in the Coke Series. Danny Hansen 13th. Mitchell DeYoung is in and locked in. He's 14th at the moment. Blade Witt holds the 15th position. 16th belongs to the 44 of Brian Mercurio. Michael Gaviria runs in 17th, right where he started tonight's race. Eric Smith with his last big run. He's already knowing he'll have to come through Road to Pro next season. He runs 18th. 19th to the 21 of Alan Boge, and Matt Busha rides in the 20th position. Blake McCandless.
21st will go to Dylan Duval right now on the cut line coming into tonight, but he'll have to move forward, I believe, to be able to make his way into the top 21. Colin Bowden right now getting passed for 22nd by Colin Keister, so shuffle him back to 23rd. Running in 24th is Donovan Strauss. 25th goes to Alex McCullum. 26th was the driver that was kind of the epicenter of that initial caution flag that slowed us for the only time so far this evening. 27th to Femi Olot. 28th is Santiago Tires. 29th is Vicente Salas. And Brandon Cattell right now as it runs out, running in 30th.
31st is Chris Overland, Seth the Merchant, 32nd. 33rd is Michael Gonzalez, 34th, Michael Guest. Jose Solis Jr. is 35th. Stephen Wilson, 36th, the lap down. Garrett Maines, a good thing he locked in last week because he runs a lowly 37th right now, 2 laps in arrears. Justin Bolton out of this race, the only car scored out of this race in 38th position, and 2 drivers who did not take the start to participate this evening, Steve Sheehan and Jarl Tyen, did not enter the server, which would give us our full 40 driver field. But as it stands, that concludes tonight's iRacing Midway Race Break with more than 170,000 drivers on the service and more than 90 laser scan tracks and cars to choose from. iRacing is your portal to the racing world. Get on track today at iRacing.com. And as we bring you back into the action, 73 laps being worked, and I continue to be activated Blake McCandless. This battle right now, it's really circulating around Zach Novak, who somehow has found his way maintaining in the top 10. But he's back here right now with Nathan Lyon, Ashton Crowder. The 2019 Coke champion needs a good run to ensure that he'll be in the field next year, but he has been at the center of a whole lot of very, very hard battles the last few laps.
Well, and I think it's mainly the case we saw how strong he was later in the run when obviously he went and took the lead in that first run. So hasn't been putting up too much of a fight just yet. Actually fell all the way back outside the top 10 before he's found his way into 8th. But I think, again, that Sunoco Toyota really starts to show its speed about 20, 30 some odd laps into a run. So I don't imagine that we'll see Novak falling any further back. If anything, he's going to be working his way forward the rest of this run.
74 laps complete. This time by the stripe, it'll be 60 laps to go. And since we've worked past the halfway point now, we'll go ahead, step aside, and take a chance to catch our breaths. We've got one more round of pit stops we know coming ahead, and still a lot to be decided in the finale of the eNASCAR iRacing Pro Series from Homestead-Miami Speedway. This is Podium Esports, and we'll be back right after this. Welcome back to coverage of Round 6, the final round of the eNASCAR iRacing Pro Series from Homestead-Miami Speedway. Jacob Seelman joined by James Pike, Blake McCandless, Justin Prince down on pit road, Ryan Bauer, Zach Johnson in the production trailer, as we are now 77 of 134 laps complete when we continue on, James Pike. And we want to take a moment to nod to some of the gifted subs that have taken a large part in supporting Podium Esports.
Plenty of folks that we need to thank tonight. Iron Cross or Wooden Cross for the 6-month subscription at Tier 1. I saw Gary Saxton, Dirty 13 with the gift subscriptions to Daniel Day. That would be Dylan Nawadney in there, Dylan TPA, RC_1122, and some fellow named Verts Cars that we happen to know pretty well. But a big thanks to everyone in chat for the support of Podium Esports. We look forward to bringing you more action over the course of the next few weeks and months.
So we close in on the final third of this race. Justin Prince, we know one more round of pit stops is coming, but we also know some drivers are fighting for their Coke Series lives, like one Blade Witt, who started outside row 15 and is knocking on the door maybe of a top 10 spot.
Remember, it was last week where it was a top 10 finish for him, in part because of the call made by his crew chief, Garrett Mashburn. For him, he felt like certainly it's the stress level that he had to some of his competitors closer to the cut line tonight, but felt like he needed to bring a good car and have to execute all night to secure their spot in the series. For him, he's been working on trying to secure a spot in the Coke Series for 5 years in various levels of success and seriousness. But this year has been the biggest chance yet. It would be a dream come true, he said, for him. He also said it'd be the biggest goal in his entire iRacing career to make it. It's been the type of race, though, where he expects it to be crazy as the pressure starts to build near the end of this race.
That, I think we can all agree. 11th is the guarantee spot if you're Blade Witt. Right now, he rides 13th, 2 spots and about 6 car lengths away from being able to make that happen. A driver who has continued to come on strong. We ride on board with now James Pike. The Baskin-Robbins entry of Derek Justice has simply continued to climb throughout this run. He's gone for second on Anthony Burrows, and Justice is a man, I think, right now, not only on a mission, but perhaps the fastest car on the racetrack.
You watch Derek Justice and his Twitch stream, and so much of his feed is just him trying to grind out iRating. His stream titles are literally 6,200 iRating, plus or minus 500 from last week. This is a man who is constantly checking his stats and knows where he stands in the general world of iRacing. So coming into tonight, I had zero doubt that he knew exactly what he needed to do to get into the field. And this is all the experience that he has, all the official races that he's run coming out to bear itself fruit week in, week out. The mile and a half, he's been so strong. So absolutely no surprise so far as I'm concerned that we see the ice cream man from Kentucky making his way towards the front of the field midway through the going.
He needed a top four, I believe a top four run. I'm double checking my notes on that. Yes, he needed a top four to guarantee himself a spot. Right now, he rides second, one spot, Blake, behind the driver who, to me, has been the absolute star of this Pro Series in the second half. Over the last three races, absolutely nobody better than the driver who leads this race right now, the 22 of Isaac Gann.
I don't think anybody would disagree with you there, Jacob Seelman. And if you're a Coke Series team, I think if you've been watching our broadcast over the last few weeks, I don't think there's a better argument perhaps for anybody in this field than having this guy sign with your team. Of course, dominated last week at Charlotte Motor Speedway and has obviously translated that to Homestead-Miami quite nicely. And it's really all started after a bit of issues at Daytona. But since then, Isaac Gann, whether he's been out front or just in the top 10, the consistency has just been something to behold for this driver out of Ohio. He's done a very, very nice job piloting this car.
And I know it's tough to guarantee it, James Pike, but just kind of based on rudimentary rough math, you look at Isaac Gann and the guy he was chasing coming in, Nathan Lyon, with Lyon back in 17th and Gann leading this race. One would think that's going to be enough to give Isaac the championship if things stay like this.
It would be outright without question. Gann only came into tonight 1 point back of Nathan Lyon with the drops included. So Isaac Gann would be the champion as it stands if this is how it holds. But that's a very big if. There's a lot of racing left to go. And more importantly, a lot of drivers who are fighting for their Coke Series lives further down in this field who may get into one another and may give us another caution flag or two before we're done with this.
Well, we saw Garrett Maines a minute ago up on the far outside. He's trying to stay out of the way. He knows his spot in the Coke Series is already well and assured. Basically, any driver who was in without the drops by 45 points or more above the cut line coming into tonight's race was guaranteed a spot in the Coke Series, regardless of how this race unfolded. And that's a good thing for Garrett Maines because tonight, unquestionably, his drop race in that number 2. But for Elliott Sadler Esports, a banner year for Garrett. A win at his home track. I don't think he could have asked for a whole lot better, even though tonight has not gone according to plan. On board right now with Danny Hansen, who rides 13th. Hansen among those who was within striking distance coming into tonight, but really needed some help. And Blake, that's what makes all this so tough right now is when you apply that drop with 5 races complete. There was, what, 6, 7 guys within about 3 points of each other behind the cut line. It was absolutely razor thin.
And that's what makes this so hard to calculate, right? Because you never know if somebody's drop is going to come this week or if it's going to be what they used earlier. So it's very hard to know exactly where some of these guys sit. They just know they have to do the best they can. And for guys like Hansen, who are about 18 or 20 some odd points behind with the drop coming into tonight, 13th is definitely very respectable, but you're going to have to nearly win the race to really have a realistic chance, because the way tonight's unfolded, a lot of the guys that we've seen up front, well, guess what? They're still up front. So that's not allowing a lot of these guys who sat 15, 20 points behind the cut line to really make up a lot of ground.
Indeed, and what makes this a little tougher, James Pike, to throw out a name that we haven't really talked about much, if at all, tonight, but as we close in on the final 45 laps of this race, Michael Guest, who was the 6th place driver in points coming in, who did not really have any worries. He just needed a top 21-22 finish here, and he's not even on the front page of the standings as it sits on our scoring pylon. He's back in 30th, so that puts a whole new wrench into this. I mean, you would think that Guest is safe, even if he had to use tonight as his drop, but it's certainly not what that driver really wanted to have to deal with for the course of 134 laps.
It will be close to his drop. His worst finish of the Pro Series was at Dover. He was pretty buried in that race, to say the least. Way back in 33rd, and right now he runs in 30th. So this would not quite be his drop, but it would be pretty close, and it would drop him down the pecking order, but it's not a lot of points that he needs to make sure that he can get in. So it certainly is going to be tighter than I think he would like, but I think you're still okay at this stage if you're the 33, but definitely not the way you wanted to end your Pro Series campaign if you're the driver from just outside of Indianapolis.
No, and a driver, though, who may be ending it on the right note is the driver who just took over 4th place a moment ago, Justin Prince. Ryan Doucette, another driver on the charge here of late. He started back end of the top 20. He has risen to 4th and done a really nice job in a race that wasn't a must-win, but he had to run well in order to feel very comfortable. And I would say 4th right now going to be pretty good in terms of his chances of advancing next year.
And remember, he's had a stellar 2020 when it comes to real-world and sim racing. Lots of experience when it comes to modifieds and Legends cars, as well as on the sim. He's been one of its most well-regarded drivers, especially on the short tracks, as well as some of the bigger tracks for the past couple seasons. Right now, the strategy looking very solid right now. I know the drivers have been very confident, and some of the crew members have been confident throughout the night on their speed, and we've seen it tonight when it comes to not just Doucette, but with Burrows and several others for Nexus Esports.
JP, pit stops coming. When should we expect them here as we close in now on 40 to go?
Well, some drivers are ducking in. Alan Bowes just came in this time by. Some expecting to even up right about now at 40 laps to go, give or take. But if they can run it on the gas, they can make it to about 115 laps into the race. So there are two potential strategies. If you're hoping for the caution, we may see drivers stretch you to about 20 laps to go. If you're hoping that it stays green, then expect pit stops to start in the next couple laps. If not, the next 5 to 10.
So that's going to be something to keep an eye on. I'm watching a 4-car scrap for position right now. Zach Novak, Mitchell DeYoung, Ashton Crowder, and Anthony Burrows has backed up a little bit. This is 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th. Blake McCandless in turn 1. They're about 4 cars under a blanket.
They really are. They are all stacked up around Anthony Burrows. Is Ashton Crowder able to make a power move to get by him? But they have really decided to kind of create a cluster right now. We were talking about Novak and the speed he possessed. He's starting to make his way forward earlier. But the problem is this is where we're going to see a lot of guys pitting. Oh, Burrows cuts it real close, pitting right there. And in terms of the strategy, this is where we're really going to see the desperation from these drivers. Lap 97, 96 is about the halfway point of where we got that caution, and they'll be able to make it to the end. But for those guys that are on the outside looking in, they need to throw a Hail Mary there. They could go to about lap 115, 116 if they decide to run their tank dry. So I think we're going to see a lot of variation in strategy here between guys who are going to try to cut it in half and make up the most time that they can, and those drivers who they have to try something different than what everybody else is doing. And I think we'll see that commence over the next 20 laps. And who knows, we've seen a lot of cautions in the Mr. Green Flag pit stops.
That pit cam that we saw a moment ago, a brilliant look from our production crew, Ryan Bauer and Zach Johnson down there in the trailer, just shows you how tough, Justin Prince talked about it a little bit ago, how tough that pit entry is to get off the banking and get slowed down to pit road speed. JP, we already saw a couple guys smoke the tires trying to get on pit road, and that's going to be the big key for some of these guys on the bubble as far as points are concerned. Do not, whatever you do, get a speeding penalty here.
Absolutely, and keep in mind, no speeding penalties throughout the entire night so far. Be keeping track on that outside of Septa Merchant, who ended up going for an undercut call. He is the only driver that has been booked for speeding in this race so far tonight. The rest of the drivers, though, they've been trying to play it to where they have a gap to be able to come into pit. There have been some teams, keep in mind, that were telling others after what happened at Charlotte last week to keep in mind of some of the other technical alliances and teams to see when they come into pit and when they're around you to make sure their cars remain safe just in case. In other words, There's a lot of different philosophies about that tonight, and we've seen for many of them, it's been if you can gain time quickly while making sure you don't speed, that's the positive. That's why so many teams practice a ton when it comes to pitting.
James, what kind of a position is Isaac Gann in right now? He would seem to hold all the cards with a 1.7 second lead and pretty much command of this field. He can almost drag this out an extra lap or two and still be in a really, really good position, I would think.
The obvious answer is that he's in the best position, but when you look at it from a strategy perspective, as we see Alex McCollum come down pit road, Isaac Gann has the ability, like you said, to stretch this out, and he can wait to come down pit road so that he can have the freshest tires on the last run if it goes green the rest of the way. However, it's certainly not a guarantee. Last year in this race, we saw a rash of cautions that started with about 20 laps to go. So that might be something these drivers might want to pay attention to. And I know there's somebody across this field that's thinking like Mary Mack and has the number back in their head where the average caution to end the race comes with X amount of laps to go. It's traditionally been about 20 as Zach Novak comes down pit road, but we'll just have to wait and see. But Gann can hold out if he wants to.
Final stop for the Coke champion, JP. Novak needs to hit his marks here. He's in good position. He needs to keep it that way and not get caught by another caution like he did the first time.
Yes, indeed. He's been having a hard time getting through the traffic since then. Ever since he got pinned towards the back of the field, the most he got is around the top 10. But overall, he expected for tonight that, as we mentioned, things could be different. He, as mentioned, would mean a lot if he can make it into the series. Had a lot of expectations on himself and the hours put on himself for this race and for this season. He's confident if he makes it back, he can return to top 4 for next year, but it's going to take lots of work. He's shown a lot of work throughout this series. It's going to be interesting how this all plays out.
16th or better is what Novak is looking for when it all shakes out. He was running inside the top 10 when he made his final pit stop just moments ago. Isaac Gann continuing to extend the lead on Derek Justice, now out to 2 seconds, and we wait as we're coming up on 30 laps to go. When does Gann pit? When, for that matter, James Pike, when do a lot of these guys pit? If you're somebody like Malik Ray, who has to have a strong run, he sits 5th right now. You got to be really careful, very deliberate about when you make the pit stop in the 51 camp.
I think if you're Malik Ray, you're trying to hang on to the leader and stay out as long as you can, although we're not even going to see that happen. Malik Ray's down pit road now, locks up the brakes. It was a difficult entry for the 51 car to get onto pit road, but I think for anybody that's in that bucket, I would try and wait it out as long as I possibly could, just in the hopes that you don't get trapped a lap down if we get a yellow flag right now. If we get a yellow flag within the next few laps before Isaac Gann comes in, but after Malik Ray comes in, it may well be League's chances to make the Coke Series next year.
Well, we don't have to worry about that. The leader coming down right now, coming to 30 laps to go for his final pit stop. The double deuce is in. Isaac Gann heading to his pit stall. Justin Prince, let's cover the stop.
Gann has been very quick throughout the night. He's been one of the quickest drivers of the past 20 laps as well, averaging 34.1 throughout the field. That is a 10th quicker than Derek Justice's teammate. Into the pit box he goes for 4 tires and fuel. Up on the right side, Jack's getting some fresh Goodyear Eagles and Sunoco Racing fuel to be able to get himself to the distance. Derek Justice and several others also expected to join him this time by, all while Isaac Gann up on the left side, Jack's. Nice clean stop, 15.3 in the box.
That's the kind of pit stop like McCandless. If you're Isaac Gann, that's a race-winning pit stop right there. He had the gap, he managed the gap, and if this all cycles out, I think we're going to see the 22 right back at the head of the field where he was before he just came down pit road.
I wouldn't doubt that, Jacob. I think Gann will be out in front. But now, you mentioned Derek Justice. He was about a 1.5 seconds back. He's going to have 1 lap fresher tires than Isaac Gann for this last run. So Gann probably be able to stretch out maybe a second or a 1.5 seconds with the 1 lap he has on those fresh tires. But Justice now, if this stays green, he could be on the march to the end of this where perhaps he has an opportunity to chase down Gann if he can have a very, very solid pit stop.
You gotta love a few of these storylines, don't you? And now the focus shifts because, James Pike, you've got guys like Danny Hansen, Michael Guerrilla, who need a miracle. This is their Hail Mary, staying out as long as they can to try and catch that caution, maybe force everybody back to pit road if they've got tires left. This is their play in order to have any hope of making Coke Series for 21.
This is their only shot as it stands, and they came in tonight buried in the point standings. Gariglia was 17 points back, Hansen 18 points back, so they needed a lot. They're getting it in some degree. Dylan Duvall's not had the greatest of nights, but he's still 15th. It would be enough to keep those two out. So even with this strategy, they're going to need to pit for the race lead and need a little bit of luck just to have a shot to make it.
Blake Witt just came down pit road a couple laps later, Justin Prince, than perhaps I expected that 7-2, because before the cycle started, he was right on the cusp as there's some 3 wide going around the former race leader, Isaac Gann. But I'm a little puzzled by the decision for Blake Witt to stay out as long as he did. That was a couple laps longer than I expected.
Yes, indeed. It ends up potentially losing some time for some of the tires, but keep in mind that drivers, only 2, are risking staying on the racetrack, Hansen and Gariglia. When it comes to the strategy, when it comes to Blake Witt, they mentioned that they've expected to be roughly into 3 parts with 2 stops. We've seen that mostly tonight. But he also expected exactly what we're seeing. Drivers need track position to run the tanks empty in hopes of a timely caution, and that's what is happening with the 42 and 15. Both of them had talked about feeling like they had good race cars. Both of them need good points nights.
Oh, let's pick up Isaac Gann as he's 2 wide boxed in behind Zach Novak down the back straightaway. The 22 in the middle of an absolute mess right now, trying to work his way through traffic. It is dicey. He gets past the 14 of Vicente Salas. He's working forward with Novak while as this all cycles through. I believe it's going to be Anthony Burrows and Mitchell DeYoung, James Pike, that become the first 2 for the net lead. Danny Hansen and Michael Gariglia, of course, the top 2 on the racetrack, but Burrows and DeYoung about 5 seconds clear right now of Isaac Gann, who he and Novak are charging.
And herein lies the big question. Does Isaac Gann have enough time to get up to Burrows and DeYoung and race them? It is about a 5-second gap, as you said. More importantly, though, Gann is about a half a second faster than Burrows and DeYoung. So you do the math with about 25 laps to go. If that maintains, he would get them, but these tires will fall off for everybody, and the gap between Gann's times and those of Burrows and DeYoung will also decrease too. So it might not necessarily be a foregone conclusion that Gann will race his way all the way back to the front. It's an interesting strategy play on Burrows and DeYoung's part, especially in Burrows' case, because he needed a top 3 finish to have a shot at the Coke Series next year.
Yeah, he was one that came in below the cut line, but Blake, when we were talking about drivers who might have a shot, Anthony Burrows was a name that came up as a driver who could potentially race his way in from below the cut line. Right now, though, he's got to fend off Mitchell DeYoung. That's the battle for the race, what would be the race lead.
It is, and Burrows, again, one of those drivers who came in about 14 points below, and from at least some of the updates I'm getting, he is just right at that cut line. It is going to be a matter for a couple of these guys of 1 or 2 positions, one way or the other, that is going to make the difference on whether these guys race their way to the Coke Series next season. So him losing the lead, again, that is some bonus points. You get more bonus points for winning this race. Kind of thinking back to the way the point system worked in the NASCAR Cup Series about 8 or 9 years ago. You think about getting 44 or 45 points to win a race. So him losing the lead, that is a big point drop. So that probably drops him about a point or 2 below.
For the moment, however, of course, all this can change. Danny Hansen finally bails out JP. He's had enough. He's on pit road.
Remember, it was Mitchell DeYoung, who helped convince him to run this season, to be able to run in these races. He's been working with him in the testing. Garrett Smithley and Ross Chastain jump into the race car and support his run with the work he's done in the NASCAR media group. And now, trying to do something different, hoping the fresher tires work for Michael Gariglia. He is the only driver now looking for the gamble. He's coming off and in as well. He expected the strategy for him to put him in the best position to win. This was his best position possibly after running mid-pack. Those drivers now come in after sacrificing the top 2.
Meanwhile, the drivers absolutely carving their way through the field on fresh tires. We continue to watch it cycle through as Gariglia has pitted, and that's going to cycle things out to Mitchell DeYoung, but Isaac Gann only 1.8, make it 1.6 seconds back of the race lead. It is going to be 4th and closing, James Pike, with about 19 to go when they come back to the stripe. I think Gann's got enough pace and enough laps to get there.
It will be tight. Taylor Hurst, though, is out in front of all of this group now. He's going to get around Mitchell DeYoung for the race lead, and Hurst is only 3/10 off of Gann's pace. Gann is still about a half second faster than DeYoung and Burrows, but it might be the 74 that we need to be watching out for. That might be the greatest threat to Isaac Gann's shot at victory tonight.
Taylor Hurst gets around and is trying to run away, but we just see Gann motor past. He gave Anthony Burrows a little bit of a warning shot there, Blake. I think that was a case of, I'm faster and you better know it, let me through.
Well, and I think Burrows gave him the high side for him to be able to go around. That tire advantage is just so huge. Even with having to work around traffic, Gann still about 4/10 quicker than Mitchell DeYoung, and honestly runs about on par with Taylor Hurst. So I just think there is too much of an advantage right here for Hurst to hold off Gann. But Hurst has been awfully quick, worked his way up through this field. So we'll see right here. Gann going to go by for second, and he just has one more to pick off to try to make it a clean sweep of the final two races to end the Pro Series.
And if you can win the Pro Series championship by winning the final two races of the year, Justin Prince, I heard the word statement talked about when I talked to Isaac Gann over the past couple of days, and this seems to be a statement race for that camp tonight.
It absolutely would be, and keep in mind their partnership as well throughout this series with Lockdown Racing has bared a lot of fruit. All of their cars have been top 5, top 10 contenders throughout the night. All of them felt like they were confident in terms of their speed for tonight, including some of the ones they spoke with, including Zach Novak. This is all the fruit of all the work they put in to try and make sure they had several drivers in. And keep in mind, the one thing to note when it comes to this partnership in the Northsports racing cars, especially with Gann's statement, in this whole group statement, is the work with Brian Schoenberg. We mentioned him earlier tonight. He did not want the end of his career in eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series action to be 2020. He wanted one more shot with this great team, in his words. Tonight shows that his choices are going that direction. Their partnership has bared the perfect direction for what they wanted to go, and Isaac Gann is the best example of the drivers who really took a step forward throughout this series and throughout the wintertime to give himself a statement for the Coke Series.
Now, the problem is, if you're Brian Schoenberg, James Pike, you're in a pretty tenuous position right here. He sits 17th, which is normally okay, but given some of the drivers that are ahead of him, it's going to make this a little bit dicey and maybe a few nervous moments after the checkered flag falls if you're in the 55 camp as far as whether he will for sure transfer.
It's going to be tight, especially because some of these drivers right on the edge of the cutoff are right near him. Ryan Doucette is currently in the top 10. Dylan Duval is in 11th. Malik Ray is charging just ahead of Brian Schoenberg. They run 14th and 15th, but all the drivers who are running around the cutoff are right next to each other, which is bad news for everybody that came into tonight out of it. The Justin Boltons, the Anthony Burrows, the Alan Boses, the Santiago Gutierrez, the drivers who were just entering this evening are putting in top 10 performances that will all but lock them in to the Coke Series if it ends as it stands.
How about this, though? If it ends how it stands is not going to be the case, I don't think, for the battle for the race lead. Down the back straightaway, coming to 12 laps to go. Blake McCandless, Taylor Hurst has the top spot. He may not have it by the time they get back to the stripe. Isaac Gann all over the back bumper off turn 4. He wants the race lead.
And Isaac Gann rolling up on him quickly. 2/10 better that last time by, and Hurst going to try to hold him off for the moment, but that 22 is just too strong. Through the bottom in 1 and 2, Hurst able to hold the high side. It'll be a drag race down the backstretch.
Drag race down the back straightaway, side by side for the race lead. The win, the final win of the 2020 Pro Series season. Isaac Gann wants to go out with a statement. Taylor Hurst just wants to lock in with a chance. Move Gann back to the race lead as we come now to 11 laps to go. He slides across the nose. Hurst's going to try the crossover. They're going at it again in 1.
Taylor Hurst is not done yet, even on the 3-lap over tires, but Isaac Gann has once again been one of the fastest cars in South Florida all night long, and he'll carry the momentum on the outside. Isaac Gann will outright take the lead away, and Hurst will have to slide in line, and now only 10 laps between Isaac Gann and his second victory in the Pro Series. A thundering way to enter the Coke Series for 21 if he holds on.
Not only a thundering way to enter the Coke Series, but it may be 2 wins and a championship to boot. That time by the stripe, 10 laps to go in the Pro Series season, 15 miles at Homestead-Miami. Isaac Gann now to the top of the board. Taylor Hurst back in second. Derek Justice, Mitchell DeYoung third and fourth. They're in good position, as is Burrows, as is Novak. The battle back on the back straightaway. Blake McCandless is further back out, just outside the top 10, around the Femi Olat Dylan Duvall machines.
Those guys are battling pretty close right here as Olat trying to make his way forward and just trying to hold on as best as he can. Dylan Duvall, again, came in on the cut line but has the better tires, and he'll be able to pull away from Olat. But I want to direct our attention to Derek Justice. That battle for the race lead allowed him to catch up just a little bit. I'm not sure if he has enough time here with under 10 laps to go, but he's clicking off about a tenth and a half per lap. Can Derek Justice perhaps mount a charge to try and chase down his teammate Isaac Gann?
I don't know that Justice can catch Gann, but the driver that just caught my eye a moment ago, James Pike, we haven't talked about him all night long. Alan Bowes for Total Advantage started 27th, runs 8th. He was the first driver on the outside looking in, coming into this race. A top 10 run with where everybody else is, that'd be enough. I believe with where he is right now, he would be in, he's just slipped back to 10th, but even at that, I think Bowes races in the Coke Series as long as he doesn't start losing spots in these last few laps.
It's going to be so tight, because the man directly ahead of him in the standings coming into the night is the man directly behind him on the racetrack, so he's only gaining 1 point on Dylan Duvall. The man to watch here is Ryan Doucette, and even then, Bowes has got to gain a few spots to get on to the number 77 machine. Malik Ray is behind Alan Bowes, and it's a 2-point gap to them, so Bowes might be in, might be out. He is right on the edge with a handful of laps to go.
It'll be 6 laps to go when they come back to the line, and that is the battle that everybody is watching as Isaac Gann starts to pull away. Now with the race lead, Blake McCandless, all the points players. Doucette in 7th, Bowes in 10th, Duvall in 11th, Malik Ray in 12th. It is going to be a battle down to the last couple of feet.
It is, and Anthony Burrows also a part of that battle as well. He loses 1 or 2 positions that last time by to Zach Novak and Ryan Doucette, and Burrows, who was tiptoeing right on that cut line. He's got to try to hold everyone off. He's got Steven Wilson behind him, some lap traffic, but Burrows may be just a hair short. It's going to be tight for a lot of these guys.
We've got a little bit of a buffer back to Ashton Crowder. This time by for Isaac Gann. 5 laps to go. He heads back towards turn 1 in the banking. No pressure out back. It's a 6-car length race lead, Blake.
Race lead as Isaac Gann still trying to hold on. He's able to make up some ground on Taylor Hurst, but Derek Justice is still looming, but with 5 laps to go, still about 8 car lengths back from your race leader.
Gap between the 2 cars. Meanwhile, Ryan Doucette, who was right on the edge, is racing his way into the Coke Series. He's climbed up through this last run to P5 as Isaac Gann and Taylor Hurst lead the field off of turn 4.
Off turn 4, back to the line. 4 laps to go this time. Doucette putting in yeoman's work. Novak is back there doing everything he needs to do, but that's 77, Blake, the man on the mission.
And Doucette trying to get everything he can with the tire advantage that he sports right now. But at least out the windshield, not a whole lot going on. There's a little bit through his rear windshield as Zach Novak still trying to chase him down.
All eyes here on Derek Justice, who's a half a second quicker than Isaac Gann, but he's still a second back of the race leader. Will he have enough time, Jacob?
Derek Justice, I don't know, is going to have enough time. It's 2 laps to go next time by. That time by was 3 laps to go. 1 second gap in turn 1.
And Justice is able to roll through the center of the corner. He is definitely picking up ground on that 74 of Taylor Hurst, but it looks like Isaac Gann may be just too far out of sight.
Isaac Gann now stretching it out on Taylor Hurst. It's almost 10 car lengths, and Derek Justice may be there to take over the second spot. He too racing his way into the Coke Series, but it's all about Isaac Gann trying to go for 2 in a row.
That he is. 2 laps to go. Popsicle sticks from the flag stand as Gann crosses the stripe. Derek Justice inching ever closer to Taylor Hurst. The battle for second going to be the battle to watch.
It is, as Justice once again making up ground through the center of the corner on the 74. Taylor Hurst sliding on those old tires. Derek Justice on the charge in the Baskin-Robbins Toyota.
Oh, kinds of good work for Isaac Gann, who continues to stretch it as Derek Justice gets held up behind the 74, and Gann may well be racing his way into a Pro Series title, but at the end of the day, all three of these drivers look set for the Coke Series in 21. White flag in the air.
Final time around for Isaac Gann. He's on his way to his second straight win. He's back in the banking for the final time.
Final lap of the Pro Series season, and Isaac Gann looking to make a statement and go back-to-back and also take the title. He's off at 2 clean, and he's setting home down the backstretch.
These last 2 weeks have all been Isaac Gann and the 22 machine. So much speed for the number 22 car, and it's going to be all Isaac Gann out of 4 for the final time at Homestead-Miami.
Open up the Pro Series record books. How about back-to-back wins for Isaac Gann? He takes the checkered flag at Homestead-Miami Speedway to win the finale for the eNASCAR iRacing Pro Series, and will await the official map, but we believe also clinch the Pro Series championship with back-to-back wins to close the year. Taylor Hurst to second, Derek Justice to third, Mitchell DeYoung crosses fourth, Ryan Doucette, the yeoman's work in fifth, and Justin Prince, no more, they cross the line. Absolute elation on the Gann radio.
Yes, indeed. The whole entire garage area congratulating him. The whole partnership between Lockdown and Norris Force, a top 3 run. Several different drivers congratulated him, and he's talked about this in the past, where we didn't see a burn up from him at Charlotte. Guess what tonight? That is different, because this race was different. Another dominant one, especially in the second half, to help secure a strong 2020 Pro Series campaign.
And we are going to wait on giving any official math other than the clinch scenarios that we had coming in. Gann was coming in. We knew that he would race in the Coke Series next year. Drivers that we know right offhand can basically breathe easy. James Pike, Taylor Hurst needed 21st or better. He finishes second. Derek Justice needed to be 4th or better. He comes home 3rd, and that should clinch him into the Coke Series. But the driver, to me, that put in the drive of the night, we don't know, it's not necessarily a guaranteed clinch, but Ryan Doucette, based on where everybody else is at, a top 5 run for him looks to be exactly what he needed, exactly at the right moment.
The 4 drivers that he was looking out for tonight, especially the ones behind him, Dylan Duval, Alan Bose, Santiago Tires, and Chris Overland. We look at the final rundown. Duval was 12th. More points for Doucette to gain on Duval's machine. Bose was only able to come home in 10th. Tires did not have a great night. He was 18th. Overland was buried back in the field all night. He finished 30th. So we would think, based off the drivers who were there and in the mix, the only one that finished anywhere near him was Anthony Burrows out of that group that was behind him, and Burrows was behind Doucette as well. So I would say at this stage it's about 99.9% certain that Ryan Doucette has raced his way into the Coke Series for 2021. And if we get confirmation on that, as we would with all of the other drivers who are still up in the air, we'll pass them along to you. But Doucette, I will agree, especially on that last green flag run, when he came out of the pits, he was about 14th, 15th on the racetrack and was very much in the midst of the grayness as to whether or not he would be all right, and he picked off everybody in front of him one by one by one by one. And so far as I can tell, I believe Doucette, with that run on the last green flag stint, has raced his way into the Coke Series in a way that few other people have done tonight.
Let's go straight to victory lane. Justin Prince about to catch up with the driver who closes with 2 straight wins and what we believe is the Pro Series championship, standing by with Isaac Gann.
Isaac Gann, you talked about this with Jacob Seelman earlier, where you wanted to make a statement. You did that tonight. Back-to-back wins to close out the season. How does it feel to win twice in the span of 2 weeks, and especially here tonight to close things out?
You know, I want to try to stay humble. So I want to say that I'm, shocked and everything, but honestly, with all the work that we put in this Pro Series, and especially the second half of the season, I'm not surprised. I mean, when you got cars like that, if you don't perform with them, there's something wrong with you. And that was awesome. I got to be honest, I didn't get a very good qualifying lap, so when I started off the race, I was kind of like, okay, just kind of ride it out here and see how it goes. And I kind of got hung on the outside and stuff and fell back. And so it kind of wasn't really the start of the race that I was hoping for, but we caught a break. I ain't gonna lie, we caught a break with that caution. It trapped a bunch of people on old tires or a lap down, and that was what did it. Once I got the track position, that thing was a rocket, and I just had to make sure that I just drove it nice, straight, and smooth. And I'm stoked, man. I'm ready to go. It's Coke time. I'm gonna have to check in with my teammates. I don't know. I wasn't really paying attention to them too much. I don't know where they all finished, but let's get it.
How's this for you to hear? Taylor Hurst second, Derek Justice third. So when you combine the partnership with Lockdown, it's a 1-2-3. You mentioned all the hard work and the speed for the car. Zach Novak showed that early on as well. Overall, what's kind of the feel now, or what was the feel in the preparation for all this tonight, and now to have it all build up to this? What's kind of the emotions now like for you as a driver, knowing all the work that was put in led to this?
When I went into this pro season, I had the mindset that I'm not here to participate. I'm not going into this thing. Squeaking into the top 20 is not good enough for me personally. It's just I require more of myself, and it was my goal. I wanted to win one race in this season. I didn't think I'd get two, so that's pretty unbelievable. I really didn't think that I was going to win tonight, but I'm just so excited. It's a total reset, though. I don't want to get too ahead of myself. The Coke series is a totally different animal, and I'm sure some of them dudes are watching this right now, kind of smirking like, haha, you don't get too excited just yet. And I'm ready for it, man. I know it's going to be a step up. I know it's going to be a different challenge, and I am as motivated as I've ever been to go after it. And we might show up and we might run terrible every race, or we might do really well. I have no clue, but my mentality is I'm going to go in there and I'm going to give it everything I have plus more, and we're just going to see what the result is.
Indeed, and now that knowing that you're in that position to race in 2021 at the top level, what's kind of now the mindset, or kind of the transition period to prepare for that? Because the next couple months, they're going to be very stressful potentially for you.
Yes, it's going to be a lot of work, and the top 20, those guys that are already in Coke, all those teams that are always, the Contis and the Keegans and the Rays and the Luzas and all those guys, they've already got, they've been in it, they've been doing it, and they got a notebook that's huge. So, we understand that we're kind of going into it with a little bit of we're a little bit at a disadvantage, but that's no excuse though, and I'm not using that as an excuse. We're gonna get after it, and these next 2 months or however long it is, it's gonna be a lot of Cup car. I know that, and we're gonna show up for the season, and we're just gonna see what we can get. But it's a good confidence booster being able to run like we did, and even though it's a different car and it's some different drivers, the field's different, everything. Just to know the kind of effort that we put in, and to know the effort that I put in, me personally, like to know that actually like paid off is really exciting, and it's a good feeling going into the season in February. So I'm excited, and I know I've said that a million times in this interview, but yeah, I'm ready to go.
By the way, a couple thank yous going in, and congratulations towards your way from drivers, including Christian Challenger, David Schildhaus, one of your fellow teammates, as well as the champion himself from 2020 in the NASCAR Coca iRacing Series, Nick Ottinger. Overall, who would you like to thank for what you've been able to do in 2020 in the Pro Series?
Yes, sir. First of all, David Schildhaus, Presley Gilson, spotting me, guiding me through everything that's going on in the race. Those guys are huge. I love those guys to death. I could not run like this if it weren't for those guys. So that's number one. Number two, North Force Racing. Vince Marsh, Matt Fortune, heck, everybody else on that team. Brian Sybury. Everybody that that puts in work on the sets, and then the guys at Lockdown have been phenomenal for this pro season. It's been a tremendous partnership with them, and that was big, and I really, we all appreciate the help that they brought, and the car. I know a lot of people don't like my car, don't like my paint scheme, but I love it. Cosman with Splash and Go Graphics, he's awesome, and I'm and of course you guys for doing these broadcasts and getting this series, giving it the kind of limelight that I think it deserves. So I'm ready to go, man.
Congratulations on the victory tonight.
Yes.
Isaac, I'll jump in here for a second before we fully let you go. I know you mentioned something that stuck out to me when you said you didn't want to skate into the top 20. Did you let yourself think championship when this season started? Was that already top of mind for you, or was that something that developed as this car gained speed the first half of the year?
It was definitely the latter. I didn't go in expecting. I definitely did not go in expecting. I got to win this championship. That was definitely not the mindset. But all my mindset was personally was I want to go in to these races and I want to compete. If I don't win a race, that's fine. But I want to be in the top 5. I want to. You got the same guys in here in the series and everything, and I wanted to come in and make a statement, honestly, what I just did. And I didn't necessarily expect to. You got to try to stay humble, I think, when you're going through this stuff, because everybody is so good and everybody's working so hard that you're only as good as your last race, and you can be great one race and then you can run P35 the next race. So that's kind of just been my mindset, is just go week to week and just take it one week at a time. And a lot of guys I think would have been really excited when they won at Charlotte, or they had a top 3 at Dover. But after those races, when I was talking to you guys, I was just chilling basically, because I knew the work was not done yet. And we've checked the box off now with this Pro Series, and then it's time to go get another one.
I know we're waiting final confirmation of the numbers, but the presumptive Pro Series champion and race winner from Homestead-Miami, Isaac Gann, congratulations once again to him. We'll toss it now down to the driver who finished 3rd in tonight's race and almost made it a 1-2 in terms of the partnership. James Pike, you're standing by with Derek Justice.
Well, normally I would be, but I think at this stage, we're going to turn it over to Blake McCandless, because Blake and Derek have raced each other in so many different leagues on iRacing, and there are few people better suited to tell the story of a man who has charged for so long to get to the top level of sim racing, and may well be just about there. We're waiting for official confirmation, but we're thinking that it is very, very close that Derek Justice has gone and done it. We'll turn it over to Blake and see what thoughts he can get out of the man from Kentucky.
Well, and Derek, I know we go back a long ways. Could you have imagined about 8 or 9 years ago, running in the Blazing Pedals Camping World Truck Series, that you could ever call yourself an eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series driver? How does it feel?
Like, my mind is going 100 miles an hour right now, man. Especially at a track like Homestead, that's has not treated me very kindly at all over the years when it comes to championship week. It feels so good to put in the effort and the results show without other stuff going on. So I'm just speechless right now, man. That's all I can say.
Well, you talk about making it a 1-2 finish, but really didn't perhaps get the jump you wanted in qualifying. But nevertheless, do you think you had a chance to win this race if maybe things go in your favor? Because we saw how hard it was to get through traffic, but you guys were obviously very fast tonight, and it seems that perhaps better than any, you were able to run up on even your teammates who have been so dominant this season.
Yeah, man. I mean, I'll be honest. I felt like the qualifying felt pretty good. Then I just look at the times. I'm thinking, wow, I could have gone a lot harder. But I think if we even qualify in the top 15, maybe even the top 10, I think I had a legitimate shot of winning this race. I wanted this so bad. So just got beat by a better teammate today. I mean, who else to get beat by than your teammate? So that's all I can say.
Well, Derek, I know you have a lot of emotions, especially after last season, 2019, coming up just short in Road to Pro. You make your way through it this year. You started off with the win in Atlanta, and it just never seemed to slow down. And then obviously pacing yourself to work up, and at least from the points that I'm seeing, again, still unofficial at the moment, but 9th in the standings when you needed a top 21 to get in. But I'll throw you the mic to you one more time. I know you got a lot of people out there, I'm sure, watching on Twitch, as they often do at twitch.tv/justice, and everything that's kind of led to this moment over the last decade or so.
Yeah, man. I just want to say, first and foremost, I want to thank Matt for bringing me on board for NFR. For those that don't know, the first 2 races in the Road to Pro season, I was not on a team at all, and Rockingham was just like, I thought, like, wow, I'm just gonna waste my time this year running 30th each week. And Matt saw, talent in me and the dedication that I want to do this. So big shout out to Matt and NFR guys to bring me on board, along me bringing along Isaac, because originally Isaac was gonna be my spotter, and then Matt saw how talented he was, and he wanted to say, hey, I want to see you drive. So, and that's where it hit off, and I think we were a dark horse in Road to Pro. No one looked at this at all. Then Pro season, I'm thinking, okay, these guys might be legit. Let's see how they do in the Pro series, and I think we've proven that too. I just want to also shout out to Buck Kicker, Baskin Robbins, Toyota, Purely Tea, best tea to drink in my opinion. Shout out for all my Twitch viewers and all the support they've given me over the last year and a half in iRacing side. It's been a pretty much dream come true. I can do this just for a hobby and provide entertainment and help that people need to get faster in iRacing in general. And shout out for everybody that like all the setup builders that work their tails off each and every week. Vince Marsh, Brian Sabry, like all the setup builders that put out bases like less than 24 hours after each race and said, let's get to work. And that's what we do. We don't stop working.
Well, Derek, I know, again, as a competitor for you all this time, I have to say congratulations. It's awesome to see you get to this level. The sim racing community is better for having you in it. And, as a friend and as a broadcaster, I think we're all thrilled for you and to be able to see what you can do at the next level. So congratulations. And sure you could go out and celebrate it too. So for all of us, thanks, Derek.
Yeah, one more thing. I also want to give a shout out for the awesome paint scheme at Splash and Go Graphics. If you don't have a paint scheme for iRacing yet, highly recommend Splash and Go Graphics. And also my crew chief and spotter, Josh Peak and Corey Carpenter, for keeping me calm, keeping me relaxed the entire race. So big shout out to them being in the box. Glad to have them.
All right, that is Derek Justice. Brings it home third tonight. Good enough to lock himself into the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series in 2021. And with some of the more official word, we'll throw it over to Jacob Seelman, who can provide some more details on that.
Yeah, thank you, Blake. We'll continue our post-race interviews in just a moment, but we do have official confirmation of the points table now, including the crowning of Isaac Gann as the champion by 13 points over Ashton Crowder when all was said and done. Mitchell DeYoung, Nathan Lyon, Taylor Hurst, the remainder of the top 5 in the championship. And around that bubble line, well, first we'll touch on Derek Justice, who did lock himself in 9th in points to end the night. But around that bubble, Steven Wilson, the last man in, and Anthony Burrows, who we thought was in, was out, was in, was out, and unfortunately ended up just short, 6 points shy of the top 21 to be able to advance. As you get a look on screen at the rest of the field, Matt Busa, another one, and Alan Bowes was the one driver who was below the cut line coming in that raced his way into that top 21 and will procure a Coke license for next year. We'll continue on our post-race interviews now. However, James Pike standing by with the driver who, to me, even though he was
a bit more comfortable in the final points tally at 11th in the standings than maybe it seemed when we were talking about him earlier in the night. This driver, to me, had the drive of the night. Ryan Doucette with a 5th place finish, James.
Ryan Doucette now joins us in the booth, and first and foremost, we can officially confirm your total for the 2020 eNASCAR iRacing Pro Series of 139 points with the drop, which puts you 11th in the final standings and means, Ryan Doucette, you are a driver in the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series for 2021. First and foremost, how does that sound?
It's a big relief. I've been stressing over this ever since I saw the points after Charlotte. I thought after Charlotte I was going to be nowhere near as close to the bubble as I was, and when I saw I was only 20th out of the 21 that were transferring to the Coke Series, it was making me really nervous. And because of that, I put in over 1,000 laps of practice this week, and between our team probably over like 5,000 laps of practice.
You had to dig, you really had to push, and especially in the middle of this race, coming off of pit road on that last green flag run, you were right there in the middle of it, and it wasn't necessarily a foregone conclusion that you were going to be set. So where on that last run did you find the speed to just drive through and past everybody to lock down the top 5 that got you the spot in the Coke Series for next year?
Well, I feel like we, just based on our whole team's performance, kind of had the second best car, and with Norris Force having the best car. But during that first run, I didn't qualify as well as my teammates, and I was making up ground during that first run, and I was committed to stay out as long as possible during those green flag runs, because I had been getting sometimes good luck, sometimes bad luck with just unlucky cautions, and thankfully I was on the good side of that luck tonight. And I think that caution put me like 8th on the restart, and that really set me up to be able to save my tires and show what the car had long run for that second run before we had the green flag pit stops.
And now you've made it, you're in. You can start turning your focus towards looking for a team to work with next year and working towards Daytona. Have you had any chance to process where your mind goes after this, or is it all just relief and exhaustion and just ready for a good night's sleep knowing you've got the job done?
Yeah, right now it's just definitely relief. I'm still kind of settling down. Like I said, I was really nervous coming in tonight because one bad move and my whole 2020 racing season would have been basically down the toilet. But thankfully we were on the good end tonight, and I can't thank my whole team at Nexus enough. James Wenzel did a great job. James and Caden did a great job on our setup this week. My spotters, Ryan McLean, Will Norton, Oysen Walsh, and Caden Honeycutt, and hopefully I'm not forgetting anybody. I hate it for Anthony. There was probably something I could have done to maybe get him into the top 20, but I was too worried about where I was going to end up in points and didn't want to take that risk.
End of the day, though, what matters, you are in the Coke Series next year. Ryan Doucette, congratulations from all of us at Podium Esports, and we look forward to seeing you at Daytona come February.
Thank you. I look forward to it.
Ryan Doucette, 5th place tonight, and one of the 40 that will compete in the 2021 eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series. Jacob?
Perhaps the most notable to make his way back into the Coke Series is the driver that I'll get a chance to talk to here and kind of wrap up some of our post-race show with, but Zach Novak. It wasn't necessarily the finish on paper that I think we thought you'd get at the start of the night. Had a very dominant car early, but in the end, it's 7th in points, far more comfortable than what you were the first 2 or 3 weeks, and I have to believe some much-needed momentum, some confidence that, yeah, we can still do this going into 2021, and a shot now at a second eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series championship.
Yeah, man. really proud of the effort tonight. We had a really fast race car, as shown by us leading that first run, and Isaac coming away with the win and a 1-2-3 for the NFR LDR Alliance. That's huge, man. I think we could have won the race had it went green from the start and we not had that untimely caution during the first green flag stop. But nonetheless, qualified on pole, led a bunch of laps, and definitely a big confidence boost for sure.
Is this a relief, Zach, knowing how bad the first couple weeks of this Pro Series season were for you, or is this more okay, we really did show them what we were capable of and what we knew we could do coming into this deal?
It's a little bit of both. I was really hard on myself after Auto Club. We just were not good there, quite honestly. I wasn't good. The team brought speed, and we had a few cars running the top 10. But I was awful, to be completely honest with you. And I was hard on myself, like I said. And then we went to Richmond, and I was pretty good. Started in the back and drove forward, but a blown engine there. If that doesn't happen, we might be competing for the championship for this series. So obviously I would have loved to win a race or two, but the cars just didn't fall that way. But we stuck with it and we're consistent, and that's what's important in this series. Wins, as important as they are in racing, this series isn't really about wins. It's about being consistent in points racing, and that's what I've been good at my whole life. So that's kind of what I just tried to stick to, and it paid off.
The recent changes, and certainly a look that you guys have found something over the past couple of weeks. I mean, do you have renewed hope going into 2021? Is this a Zach Novak that can kind of shake the schneid that you guys had in 2020 and really contend again like we saw from you in 2019?
I have no idea. It's going to take qualifying better, that's for sure. These last 2 weeks especially. Starting from the pole, it sets up your race so much better than starting, 15th or worse. So definitely going to have to work on qualifying this year, both setups and driver-wise. I really struggled with that this past year, and I don't think we necessarily struggled extremely badly with race pace last year. Some races obviously weren't great, but it's just going to come down to qualifying and just executing the races better, which I think we did great in this Pro Series, and obviously the cars being really fast helped. But I do think we found a few things through this Pro Series that we can try and at least translate them to the Cup car and for next year's Coke Series. So it's definitely looking up, that's for sure.
The second most laps of any driver in this Pro Series season, despite just 6 races, Zach. I know that's a solid stat for you guys to hang your hats on going into now what's a little bit shorter off season. Before we let you go, shout outs, thank yous. Now's your time to give a call to those who made it happen and got you back into the Coke Series for 2021.
Yeah, I just want to thank Richmond, and Brandon and all of our sponsors, Sunoco, SimSeeds, Coca-Cola Energy, everybody that supported me through a really rough year for me mentally, and we went through it and they supported me through thick and thin, and I can't wish for a better team. I can't thank them enough for everything, and to support me through the Pro Series and believe in me that I can do it again and make it back in the Coke Series means the world to me. So thanks to all them again, and everybody at Lockdown Racing, Taylor especially, and all the Norse Force guys as well, for making rocket ships every week. And it was definitely a pleasure to drive especially these last 3 weeks, but we've had pretty good cars this whole season. So very thankful for that, and everybody that helps behind the scenes, my spotter and crew chief Brandon Coventry and Logan Sheets. They did awesome this season. They did a really good job and keeping me patient and out of trouble. I'm really happy, man. I might sound very monotone, but I'm stoked.
And I think we've known that of you the last couple years, Zach, that there's a calm voice, but I know the excitement's there. Congratulations, and we will see you back on the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series grid here in just a couple of months at Daytona. Congratulations.
Thanks, bud.
Zach Novak, P6, but like 20 others, he is in the Coke Series field for next year. We'll give you a look at the final series standings for 2020 because Isaac Gann holds on for the championship over Ashton Crowder, Mitchell DeYoung, Nathan Lyon, Taylor Hurst, Garrett Maines among those who we knew were solidly in. Zach Novak there in 7th. And, as you get down the line, the Ryan Doucettes, Vicente Salas's, Malik Ray ends up getting back in after all the talk. We were concerned about him, as does Brian Schoenberg, who is going to get another season at the Coke Series level to showcase his skills. There's the top 20, and Steven Wilson, if we flip to the next page, the final driver in 21st, who transfers. Anthony Burrows, the first man out. But then it's a whole bunch of drivers. Brandon Cattell, Chris Overland, Michael Guerrilla among those, Alex McCollum as well, who were all in the Coke Series this past year and do not advance. Justin Bolton, another driver, Eric Smith, Colin Keister, Jarl Tyan, all those with Coke Series experience that missed the cut. Steve Sheehan as well, another. So a bunch of drivers who find themselves, who were at the top level last year but have now been relegated and will have to race their way back in through the road to pro in order to make it happen again and try to get back on the grid for 2022 in the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series. That's how the standings shake out. And as we continue to kind of look forward now, James Pike, I'll turn to you first. Driver that surprises you that got in, and a driver that surprises you that was left out.
A driver that surprises me that got in. Wow, it almost feels harsh to say. I don't even know if I would have touched that one, but the big shocker to me, I think, coming into this series and out of Road to Pro, I really thought Eddie Kerner was going to have more pace. He was top 5 in Road to Pro points. He won the Landon Castle qualifying challenge back in May. He was a name that I think a lot of people had circled as one that could come in and do some damage, and it just never quite clicked for him over the course of the Pro Series. But the good news for Eddie, still incredibly young. He and Donovan Strauss were two of the youngest drivers who made it into the Pro Series this season and didn't race their way into the Coke Series, but they had plenty of years, plenty of time to improve their craft. And even though this time was at the time that their name got called, I still think we're probably not far removed from seeing them in the Coke Series in the near future. You'll definitely want to watch out for those two when we get back to Road to Pro in the upcoming season.
Mike McCandless, I know it's a short 6-race season, and sometimes it's hard to get a read on who really has performance, but I don't think there's any question. All of us sitting on this panel can agree. Isaac Gann, a very, very deserving Pro Series champion.
No doubt about it. And again, after Daytona, it was set sail for Isaac Gann and really that entire North Force group. And it's just incredible to see the charge that they mounted, the amount of laps that they led. Gann led more than anybody in the series. But, you mentioned a couple guys that in the grand scheme of things come up short in the points. But how about Ashton Crowder in the season that he had? How about Mitchell DeYoung and the wrench that's going to be thrown into a lot of those road courses that we may see in the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series next season? I think with the experience with some of his teammates, you can't shy away from DeYoung perhaps being a top contender in the series next season. So a lot of guys who just really flex their muscles. And again, I'm surprised that with the different track types we had, maybe not these last 2 races, but throughout the whole season, short tracks, long, obviously a large track at Auto Club, you had Daytona, you had a big mix of tracks, but yet it was consistently the same drivers that seemed to find that speed and to be up front. And that just tells you the work ethic of these teams to battle through a new build. All of those things, they were not going to be denied. And Isaac Gann, perhaps the most of all those drivers, including Elliott Sadler Esports and Ashton Crowder, VRS, all those organizations. So I think we've really seen right now who's willing to put in the time to try and find that speed. And right now there's no better case, I think, than our top 3 in the standings.
Justin Prince, you're going to get the opportunity to study a lot of these drivers, really the whole Coke Series field going into 2021. What stands out to you now that we know who the 40 competitors are going into this new season in February?
I think out of the drivers who made it, I'm really curious about the ones who were in the early years of eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series competition, drivers who ran in the pros and won in the pros, like Alan Bowes. He's among the drivers who just made their way in. You have Matt Busa squeezing his way in. You have Steven Wilson, who joins an elite club along those cut line drivers who just barely made it in on the points, where he gets to run not just now in the Coke Series, but also, remember, ran in the iRacing World of Outlaws Morning Buildings Late Model World Championship most recently. You've got drivers with a chance to make history, and you've got drivers on the comeback trip, while you have others such as Maines, such as Matheson, such as Doucette, such as Salas, who have been well respected and known for being very quick when it comes to their driving style and their speed and pace throughout official racing for the past couple of years. It's going to be the matter, though, for many of these competitors, how do you fare against the best of the best? Because it takes a lot of dedication and skill, as well as preparation, to be able to win those types of races and to be able to compete in the top 20, let alone inside the top 5 week in, week out. There's going to be a lot of work having to be put in starting now for everybody that made their way into the field. For a lot of the drivers who were among the surprises, it's the chance for some of them where they get to regroup and get chances to work with those drivers at the pro level while they try and qualify the way in to become drivers themselves. For others, I think their entire programs may have to completely be re-looked towards how they went this season, with some of them having half their programs moving out of the Coke Series.
As we get ready to say goodbye to the Pro Series 2020, we're going to quick take a look at the upcoming events here on the Podium Esports and iRacing Versus. Of course, we've got the Grit Ultimate Driver Challenge from Dover coming up on December 28th at 7:30 p.m. Eastern. You've got Monday Night Racing presented by Tufco from Watkins Glen, which makes its return after the new year, January 4th, 9 p.m. Eastern on the Podium 2 Twitch channel. And then, of course, we've been talking about it all night long, James Pike, the 3rd annual Podium 500, February 7th, 12:30 p.m. Eastern, right here on Podium Esports. And I don't know that there's any of us on this panel that's not excited and already looking ahead to that one.
I can say, just looking at it a few moments ago, we opened registration at 8:45, right as we went on air to talk about the 500 at the beginning of this broadcast. In that 2-hour stretch alone, we have already seen 23 drivers put their name in the hat for the Podium 500, and you've got some big names in there as well. Seth Eggert and Justin Malillo, the reporters extraordinaire, are going to be in the mix. Nick Olson from Grit Motorsports Marketing, part of the Grit Ultimate Driver Challenge, has already entered his name in. Will Cooley, who was a top 5 finisher in the 500 a year ago, is in there. Steven Ellis, Josh Parker, and Matt Stallknecht from the Monday Night Racing world are going to try their hand at it, as is streamer Daniel Day. He's also registered, as is Max Brady. So some big-time names. Garrett Conrath in there, too. Part of the names that have already signed up for the 500 within the first 2 hours. So, yeah, you figure it's going to be a pretty big event. I think that's absolutely an understatement. And for those who haven't registered, you can slide to the link in chat, podiumesports.com/podium-500 to go ahead and register. Should be a lot of fun to see that pan out. And beyond that, a big thanks to everybody that's watched the Pro Series, and a big thanks to everybody at Brandon Brown and Rich Moraes Esports for either making me look so dapper or so ridiculous tonight that this happened. It's been a fun one all the while.
It has been. Blake McCandless, I know you and I were both looking at all the heavy hitters that were bumped out and will now have to race back through the Road to Pro 2021 to try and have a shot at the 2022 Coke Series grid. What stood out from you there?
Well, I think what stands out is, there's a lot of celebration tonight. Obviously, 21 drivers get to call themselves eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series drivers next year. But on the flip side of that, you have 19 drivers who are getting dropped out, and not just level playing field at pro. They are getting dropped all the way back down to Road to Pro, where they'll have to battle what is up for grabs for anybody who has above a 2.0 Class A safety rating on the iRacing service to try and get back in this 40-car field field. And since the inception of this format that we've had where we have a 40-car Pro Series, last year, 2019 season, how many drivers who finished below that 20th place cut line that were in the Pro Series this year? Zero. Absolutely zero. The amount of drivers who from 2018 who are still in the Coke Series right now that were below that cut line, there's two of them. There's Femi Olot, who got his way into the series tonight, and then of course John Gorlinski, who is still in the Coke Series right now. So that is how hard it is. As much as we're happy that there's a new crop of drivers coming in, it's the flip side of defeat and how hard it is to go through an entire Road to Pro season, finish top 20, and that is not an easy task. And it's been something since the inception of this format that has been very difficult to do for even former eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series stars.
And that's going to basically tie this one off. After 6 races and a bunch of miles here on the iRacing service, we have our 40 drivers who will race for a possible $100,000 champion share next year, or potentially more. We've seen that grow over the past couple of years, but we know the prize pool will be vast, and we'll look forward to seeing that play out in February when the stars of the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series take to the high banks of Daytona to kick off the new season. And I think on behalf of all of us at Podium Esports, we want to say thank you to all the fans who have tuned in over the last 6 weeks to help make our coverage of the eNASCAR iRacing Pro Series possible. But alas, it is time now to bring it to a close from South Florida. So for Tyler Hudson and Cisco Scaramuza at iRacing, for Gary Sexton and John Theodore at Podium Esports, for our producers Ryan Bauer and Zach Johnson, for Justin Prince down on pit road, and for my broadcast partners James Pike and Blake McCandless, I'm Jacob Seelman, congratulating all the drivers, 21 strong, who have raced their way into the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series, and to tonight's race winner and Pro Series champion, Isaac Gann. Until next time, here on Podium Esports, keep it off the wall till we meet again.
One weekend, any driver can go from nothing to something. Daniel Everhart winning the Podium Esports Daytona 500. And something to nothing. Oh, contact! Justice gets turned in front of the field. There, Justice gets... In an instant. Register now at podiumesports.com.